Oh God, yeah. Nacho fries. God damn. So fucking good. I'm so glad they're back.
Hey man. Hey.
Bromo. Hey.
Hey,
what's up, man?
What are you doing, man?
Oh, I'm just trying to wolf down some food before the show starts. Nacho fries are back at Taco Bell, so I got like 3 orders of them.
Oh.
There's just
Oh, I've never had those. Can I have some?
Yeah. Here, you can have a couple. Here.
Okay, well here I'll give you some walnuts for it.
Okay. Well, I'll have that late.
I got this half a bag of walnuts. You can just have it. I only had like a few.
Okay. Yeah. That's I don't know if that really goes with nacho fries, but fuck it, I'll try it.
Okay. Well, you never know, right? Hey, man. Did you call the man?
Did I call the man?
Yeah, the guy. That knows about the ghost man. Did you know?
Oh, well, no, Abramo. For the bathroom, you mean?
Yeah, man.
No, I called a plumber, Abramo, because it was a plumbing problem, and he fixed it. It's good.
I don't know about that, man.
But everything's been fine. The bathroom's actually looking better. Like you've been doing a great job over there. It looks fantastic.
Thank you. I know. I'm very good at it. But no, you still need Ghost Man.
Okay, are you wanting me to call a man that's a ghost or
No. I mean, you could. Maybe they could solve the problem. Maybe if you have a ghost and you have him fight the other ghosts, it will work. But I don't know. Okay.
I mean, I really I think everything's okay, Abramo, but look, like let me worry about this later. Let me finish my nacho fries.
Okay.
We got Megan McDuffie on tonight, so it's like a big show.
Oh, that's nice.
So yeah, really excited. So let me finish wolfing these fries down. We're gonna get the show started, and then remind me later about calling the ghost guy.
Hey, can I have some of those? Can I have some of those walnuts back?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, thank you.
No
but don't forget about calling the ghost man. Okay.
Okay. Well, you might have to remind me.
Okay.
Because there's a lot going on tonight.
All right.
But yeah.
Okay. Good.
Okay.
Okay.
Thanks,
bye.
Man. All right. Oh fuck. Nacho fries. They should sponsor us. God damn.
Live from beautiful downtown Bastrop, it's time for the Stage Select, starring Julian Titus and Justin Ham.
What could this possibly be? Seems a lot like a podcast. Wonder what specifically. Talking about video games. With your hosts, you're in good hands. Not more of the same. Now we'll jump right in. So expect the unexpected and more. Now we'll get grooving. There ain't always never walk through the door. There just might be some treasure in this chest. Having fun with our special guest. Time for Stage Select.
And here are your hosts, Julian Titus and Justin Ham.
Welcome, one and all, to the Stage Select. I'm Julian Titus.
And I'm Justin Ham. Hello. We're here.
We are here. We're a video game variety show, and we have a very special guest. You hear her every episode starting the show, but this week we have her live in the auditorium. We have the wonderful, the talented Megan McDuffie.
Woohoo! Hi guys.
Hello.
Hello.
It's wonderful to speak to you again. It's been ages.
It has been a while, hasn't it?
It
has.
Yes, and I kind of wanted to kick things off, like as far as kind of getting new listeners up to speed on how we made this connection. We actually spoke to you last at the end of 2019, which was the year that River City Girls had come out.
Yes.
And
Right.
one of our previous co-hosts of Nerds Without Pants had said, hey, you might want to hit up Megan McDuffie because she's like really active on social media. Like she's really welcoming to listeners and stuff like that. And she might be down for an interview. And so we reached out, and sure enough, you were cool to sit down and talk to us. It was actually a music episode. We would do like a year in music game review type thing. And that was a lot of fun. And that since led to like a really nice relationship over the years. You did the theme song and interstitial tracks for Nerds Without Pants. When we ended that show and started the stage select, we both agreed, well, we got to have Megan McDuffie for our theme song again if we can get her. And thankfully you were available, and we got you for that. And but in the years since, you've been just kind of all over the place. Like,
Yeah.
would you say that like the first River City Girls kind of put you on the map as far as like video game soundtracks, or were you already pretty established by then?
River City was definitely the largest project I had done to that point, both in terms of scope and visibility. So, I mean, it was a massive, massive soundtrack, and then Way Forward already had this awesome built-in audience that, fell in love with the game, fell in love with the soundtrack. So yeah, that I had been working in the games industry a little bit before that, and primarily focusing actually on movie trailers and film stuff prior to that game. So I was kind of just like seeing what was going to stick, if that makes sense. Like, okay, do I focus on film? Do I focus on games? And so River City really just sort of kickstarted the game stuff.
Yeah, and it feels like that's been your bread and butter since. I mean, I think I have seen you do like some movie stuff here and there, but it really feels like the game side has really kind of like snowballed since then.
Yes, it absolutely has.
Yeah. I mean, I'll say just from my personal standpoint, I think other people are in this camp as well. As you are now a name where if you are attached to a game, I'm instantly A, more interested, and B, probably going to buy it just for the soundtrack.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Like,
yeah,
when
that's awesome.
When Limited Run Games announced that they were doing River City Girls 0, and they mentioned, oh, new music by Megan McDuffie, I was like, okay, well, then I'm getting that. Like,
yeah.
That's so awesome. Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. And you've been like, so obviously like the Way Forward relationship is still very strong. Obviously
Yes.
River City Girls 2 was huge, but you've also been like low key, maybe high key. Like you've been really involved in a lot of like Atari's efforts recently.
Yeah.
Yes, a lot is accurate. They started, I don't remember what year it was. It was kind of shortly after River City 1, actually. That they reached out to me specifically because they heard my soundtrack while I think one of the producers or directors or somebody was playing with his daughter. And he was like, this music's pretty great. I should maybe consider, mentioning her to my team.
Nice.
And yeah, so Atari, I've done all 9 of their recharged titles.
That's incredible.
That is.
Yeah. And
Substantial.
And I'm assuming, I mean, I should have looked this up. Yars Rising, is that,
yes.
That's also an Atari project, correct? I mean, the original Yars Revenge was, but
I think it's Way Forward and Atari, if I remember correctly.
Yes and yes.
okay.
It's so Atari did Yars Revenge, Yars Recharged. I think it is Yars Revenge Recharged, double R. As part of their Recharged Games series. And then just last year, Way Forward and Atari partnered up for Yars Rising. So it was kind of cool to have both of my, best clients working on something together.
Right.
That was neat.
How does something like that come about? Like, is it a thing where they kind of come to the same conclusion independently, or is it like one reaching out to the other and it just so happens that they're like, oh yeah, like we also know Megan?
I have no idea. I have no clue how that partnership, how that idea happened. No clue whatsoever.
As you've kind of more established yourself in games soundtrack creation, do you find that you are given kind of more leeway to kind of just do your thing, or do clients have like a pretty rigid idea of what they want for a particular level or boss fight or what have you?
would say that nobody has been super strict thus far. Typically, there will be at least some sort of music direction, some reference material just for like instrumentation and vibe, I guess. And then they sort of set me loose on it. Yeah, it's kind of like loose guide rails. If you had like one bumper lane on when you're bowling instead of both.
Gotcha.
Okay.
So, and how does that process go, like with a video game? Are you seeing like, you know, mock-ups of the level or the character that you need to like create music for and going from there? Or is it more of like you're feeling out the vibes of the particular project and kind of going from there and then fine-tuning as you need to?
So I'm trying to think. They're all, obviously, every project's a little bit different. But generally speaking, I will have some sort of rough gameplay footage that they've screen captured for me, some artwork level descriptions, be that, you know, 2 sentences or an entire paragraph, doesn't really matter. Just kind of enough to get me thinking about the world and the feel of things.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen like a piece of like character art or something like that where it just comes instantly, like you're like, oh, I know exactly what I want to do for this, or is everything kind of like, you know, a more like trial and error process?
I think with the recent, I'm just going to use the Retro Realms Halloween and Ash versus Evil Dead thing for an example.
Okay.
They gave me, you know, kind of key art and a little bit of gameplay footage, and I just instantly heard what was going to make sense for both of those games.
Nice.
So that was cool. I like when
yeah.
that happens.
Yeah. Makes it easier, I imagine.
It does, yeah.
Right.
I'm sure, you know, as an artist, you know, you run into blocks here and there. Like how do you overcome that? Like, especially because I would imagine with like video game soundtracks in particular, right? Like there's probably more of a time crunch than doing your own thing, which we'll talk about, you know, later on. But how do you power through that?
I am super, super fortunate in that I usually don't get writer's block. If I do, I step away from it for as long as I possibly can, given my deadlines, and do something completely unrelated. So go for a jog, go, you know, play with my cats, go sit in the sunshine, take a shower, whatever, just anything that is mindless. And that really, really helps to sort of recenter myself and focus better when I come back to it. Yeah, it's just sort of one method I use. And yeah, for the most part, I'm super lucky in that when I sit down to do something, it just kind of comes out. And, you know, obviously some things I'll have to take more time if it's not quite coming to me as fast, but generally I don't have much of a problem, which is awesome.
That
is good.
That's incredible. Are you typically juggling like multiple soundtracks, like projects at a time, or are you more of a one at a time type of artist?
I will have as many irons in the fire as possible at any given moment. So yes, there is a lot of flip-flopping, a lot of calendaring. I'm a very religious calendarer, specifically for that reason, just because I have to switch between projects. Even for the game I just mentioned, which is kind of 2 games, there's 2 components to it. You can purchase them separately. One is Halloween, one is Ash versus Evil Dead. They would ask me to deliver, you know, 2 tracks from this one and 3 tracks from this one. So there was a lot of mental switch flipping in any given week when I was working on those simultaneously.
Yeah, I'm curious how that works, because especially, you know, obviously, you know, every game is different, right? But game genres can vary wildly, and how challenging is it to mentally switch focus from this horror game to, this more actiony game, to this more like electronica type game. Is it more exciting that way, or is it a little more like,
It's not too bad. I do like the variety of things that I work on. Keeps it interesting. I found like halfway through River City 2 where I knew I had 20 plus tracks to deliver still.
Mm-hmm.
I welcomed any sort of change in tone and genre at that point, because I was like, okay, how many River City tracks do I have left in me right now?
Right.
I need to do something else just for a little bit.
Yeah, it feels, and I mean, there's a lot of them, right? They seem to come out all the time, but I feel that like you're becoming kind of synonymous with like the River City brand at this point, where it almost feels like if a new game comes out and you're not on the soundtrack, it's like, well, what are we even doing here?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was super lucky in that way that there's just so much cohesion between my name and that franchise now. Like,
Yes.
Oh yeah.
the first game cemented it, and it's really cool. Like, that wasn't planned or anything, but now I'm just part of it, and that is, so it's the dream.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. When you have that like name and franchise connection, right? And so then it's just like it feels weird when that name isn't attached to the franchise, and not to take anything away from whoever is doing the music on that particular iteration, but fans are like, yeah, but
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and I guess we'll get off the games in a little bit, because I definitely want to talk about your new album, Crimson Legacy. But are there any types of like genres or particular like dream projects? I mean, obviously you can't name names, but just kind of like things that you still want to do in the game space for sure. But then even like if we're talking about like beyond video games and beyond your personal projects that you're kind of like chomping at the bit to get a crack at.
Yeah, a couple things. They're fairly related. In games, I would love to be hired for something like metal meets cyberpunk, something in the like horror action sci-fi realm.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of a Dead Space or a Doom type thing. That would be super fun. Just, where I could let my crazy gnarly trailer sensibilities out a little bit. That would be really fun. And then similarly, I would love to do a really cool indie horror movie along the lines of It Follows, something that, obviously has like a decent budget, is very well received, like a really, really cool idea and cool execution. I think that would be super, super fun as well.
That would be cool.
Our friend of the show, and he's also our show announcer on every episode, so listeners hear him right before your theme song every week. John Gholson, he has a bunch of like indie horror projects like kind of in the pipeline, like that he's been acting in. And that would be like super fun if like down the road there's an indie horror movie comes out starring friend of the show John Gholson and friend of the show Megan McDuffie did the soundtrack. Like that would tickle me like so much.
Hey, it could happen.
It could.
Never
know. If I get word of him on a project early enough, I'll be like, hey, do they have music yet? Because I know someone.
Right.
That would be very cool.
That'd be great.
Yeah. Because we're always wanting to support you anytime that we can. Like we definitely try to send people your way anytime that you've got a new thing on the horizon.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely. And we are speaking in October. I know spoopy season is pretty big deal for you. Was releasing the album in this time frame always the plan, or was that more of just kind of like a happy coincidence?
Let's see. I wanted to release it in spooky season, definitely. last year around this time is when I put out the very first single from the album, which was Entity.
Mhm.
And I felt like I put it out a little bit too late into October, that like it didn't have the time after the release to sort of, you know, get as many listeners as it could have before November. And I feel like once it's November, people just shut off Halloween vibes. So
Yeah.
yeah, this year when I was kind of cranking away on the album this past spring, I was like, okay, October is my ideal release date. And then I sort of worked backwards to figure out what needed to happen before then and when everything needed to happen so that I could release in October.
Nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you know, I've been listening to it all week. It's
awesome.
an awesome album.
Thank you.
Oh yeah. It's funny that you mentioned that you wanted to work on something kind of like cyberpunk or sci-fi, because your rendition of Army of Me, as I was listening to it, I was like, I need someone to mod this into Cyberpunk 2077 because it fits like so perfectly well. Like,
Yeah.
it's like the same level of like kind of aggression, but synthy, and like, I don't know. I was obviously, like, before that game even came out, I was like, I kind of want this to be a Megan McDuffie soundtrack. Like the whole time that I was playing it, like that's kind of what was in my mind.
That is true. He complained to me about this. I remember that. Yeah.
Not to take anything away from what's there.
No, yeah. I'm like, I really like the cyberpunk soundtrack. He's like, I don't know, man. I don't know. It should be this. I'm like, okay. I mean, that could work too. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it was good, and I think as I played more of it, I definitely got like way more into the soundtrack. Like I think about it more fondly, like after the fact. But it didn't have as much of the like nighttime drive vibes that I was hoping for. And Crimson Legacy like is nighttime drive vibes.
Okay.
Like that's like I went to go see Smile 2 last night. And so it was like 10:30 when I got out of the theater, and I popped on Crimson Legacy. I was driving home. I was like, yeah, this is the vibe. This is very cool.
Right on.
So moving on to that, Megan, you know, what is the difference in the overall process between working on your own private project versus working, you know, for a big game soundtrack or a work for hire type thing?
Yeah, so the major difference, I think, is that obviously I don't have any sort of guide rails. I don't have any guidelines, no brief to stick to, nobody to answer to the delivery except for myself. So it sort of impacts where I start when I sit down to write something. If it's for myself, I generally will just actually keep a running list of really cool sounds that I've come across when I've been working on other projects. And so I will go reference that spreadsheet and be like, okay, I'm going to just choose one of these sounds and see where it takes me today. That's cool. You know, I'll load up my favorite synths and just sort of go down the presets. And if anything kind of perks my ears up and I, you know, like a little firing mechanism goes off in my brain, then I'll start with that. Generally too, like when I sat down for this album in particular, I knew that I wanted it to be darker, I wanted it to be grungier and grimier and have a lot more guitar work, which it does. So I did kind of give myself a little bit of a foundation to work from, at least just like keeping that in mind when I was working on stuff. But I didn't have as strict of guidelines, I guess, if that makes sense.
Right.
Oh, absolutely. And that actually makes me think of a thing that me and Justin kind of, you know, were surmising on an old episode of Nerds Without Pants when we were talking about music. And now we have a musician to ask. Do you tend to start with lyrics or the actual instrumentals when you're starting to write a personal song?
I never start with lyrics. I don't know if I ever have. Yeah, usually, like I said, it's sitting down at my workstation and loading up auditory cues, because that's what gets me going. Like, oh my God, this bass sound is so cool. What can I do with it?
Yep.
That's where I'll start. Sense. Yeah. And then once I get kind of a skeleton going on where, drums, bass, maybe one synth, then melodies will come to me, and I'll just sort of do like a scratch vocal with la la la, that kind of thing, or something into my phone as a voice note, and then kind of take it from there.
Yep, I remember in my old band days, that's how we would write everything pretty much. It was all music first, and then eventually somebody was like, I guess I can do this with lyrics, and a lot of it was nonsense for a long time, and then they would actually write words to it. So yeah, totally makes sense.
Similar.
Yeah.
Yep.
So very much the Hugh Grant versus the Drew Barrymore of the equation here. The music and lyrics. It was a movie.
Yes. Love that one.
So that actually, I had this plan. I'm glad that came up, because I had this question and I forgot about it. But so
great.
Where's like the strangest place or the weirdest thing that you've been doing when inspiration hit and you were like, oh shit, I gotta like get that down somewhere right now or it's gonna be gone?
Ooh, that's a funny one. I love when it hits me like that too, just out of nothing. It's the best. Let's see. Okay. So for Entity, again, this was the first single from this new album back last October. Well, I was working on it before then, but it came out last October. I was on my way to, it was either the post office or the deli. Like, they're right next to each other. So I was in that parking lot. I got there, did my errands. I got back in the car, and this weird ass thought just sort of hit me over the head. It was like, what if I wrote a song about one of Jack the Ripper's victims coming back from the grave and haunting his ass? What would that sound like? I was like, where the fuck did this come from? But I just, like the chorus melody and even a fraction of the lyrics came to me when I was driving home in that 5-minute span between the post office and my house.
Nice.
Yeah.
So
it was just like, what?
So you're just kind of like humming it to yourself, and then what do you do then? Do you instantly like get to a recorder as soon as you can, or are you writing it down somehow? Like how are you getting it from that initial flash to that first like blush of it?
Yeah, so I distinctly remember pulling into my driveway, putting the car in park, turning it off, grabbing my phone and whipping out a voice memo and just sort of humming the chorus cadence. And, it just sounded like complete nonsense because I was like, da 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 blah blah blah, and then I would do, mouth drum noises like, boom, boom, cha, boom, boom. And then to add to that was like, okay, so it's going to build up like this, and then there's going to be this yell, and then there's going to be this huge, huge drop. And so that's the voice memo that I worked from when I finally sat down to flesh it out.
Oh, I love that.
That's great.
Damien Rice is one of my favorite like all-time musicians, and they're on one of his like EPs. He has the first version of Volcano that he did in like 1997, and it's not a complete song, but it's just him like talking into like a little, probably it was like a mini recorder, and it starts with him saying, December 97, song called Volcano, and then he just kind of goes into it, and it's also like it's kind of a messed up recording. You can tell that like it got scratched up or something over the years. So like the digital version of it is kind of messed up, but I love that. Like it's so raw and it's just kind of it's really cool to like kind of get that process or a hint of that process anyway.
Yeah, that's fun.
Yeah. I really feel that like music is kind of magic. I'm not musically inclined at all. It's like the one like skill that I wish that I had like above all others. Were you like kind of classically trained, or is it more of just a thing that you just kind of fell into and were like, oh, this works? Like I know this. Like I understand this.
Both. I always just had this insatiable, I don't know, it came with me. As soon as I was in this world, I wanted to, and I sort of immersed myself in all things music. So, just like from the age of 3, dancing around my house and performing songs I had heard on television to my parents and stuffed animals, to then taking a tape recorder and recording every single sound in my house to make a cassette sound library of like Foley and stuff when I was just, 8 years old or something. And then, I started piano lessons, voice lessons. I did choir. Oh man, like 10 hours a week from age 12 through age 22. I have 2 degrees in music. So it was just like, there was never a question about what I was going to do. Nice. It was just kind of after college where I was like, all right, what's going to work? Like it's going to be music, but what specifically is going to work for me?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
What, obviously, you're very young and your career is taking off, but do you ever think about like kind of what you want to do like way down the line? Like, would you want to teach music or, like kind of get into like music theory and stuff like that? Or do you think that the creative side is where you're destined to be like for your whole career?
I absolutely live in the creative space. If I were to teach, I think it would be in the way that I would package production content. So almost do like a Megan masterclass to sell to people. Mm-hmm. I've had some interest in that already. So that's kind of on my radar for the future. But I want to just keep composing and producing, whether that's for games or film or for my own artist releases. Ideally a nice blend of both, or both of all of them, because I really enjoy the different mindsets and facets to each one.
I just have to say that the Megan Masterclass has a really great ring to it.
Yes.
So, if you ever go that route,
that
you already got the name. Yeah, it's pretty good. Yeah.
You've mentioned a couple times having like a sound library of just like sounds, and that's very interesting to me. Is it just like because you are all like music. You're not doing like audio design for these projects, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So where does that kind of come in? Because I never like that's a completely new concept to me for a musician. Like I get the idea of like if you're doing like, sound effects and stuff like that, like you would because so we do a lot of like dumb bits on this show, and so over this last year I have amassed like a massive like sound library already. Like just it's like, okay, I need this sound effect and I'll buy that, and then I got it for later in case I need that again, and so then 8 or 9 episodes later I can go back. It's like, oh yeah, I've got exactly what I need to do this dumb skit. But I never thought of that for like, making music.
Yeah, so it primarily comes in handy for trailer stuff, or any sort of weird, gnarly soundscape horror type thing that I'm working on. Because I love having a library of really interesting sounds to then layer underneath musical elements or tweak in some way, put strange effects on them to create new sounds. It's just something I like to do when the project calls for it.
Cool.
Makes some really interesting pictures.
Yeah. Right. And going back to Crimson Legacy, what was like what were some of the challenges and like what you collaborate with a lot of people on this, like was scheduling an issue or like just kind of I always like to hear about like the not pitfalls but like the hurdles that people have to overcome when they're creating something, because I feel that people get the finished product and it sounds so incredible, and it is, but a lot of blood, sweat, and tears get you to that point.
I'm trying to think, since I've been working on this album for just over 2 years now. Seems like so much time, and yet it also kind of got a little crazy at the end when I was trying to squish everything together amongst other projects and traveling and family and all that stuff. It all just kind of worked. Like I said before, I'm a very good scheduler. I have my calendar down very well, and I'm constantly shifting things around and planning, so that really helped keep me on track, because I knew I had specific milestones that I had to hit by certain dates if I wanted my October 11th date to happen for the release. For distribution, for example, you're kind of supposed to, as a rule of thumb, upload your mastered album to distribution a month in advance, so that it has time to populate all of the digital databases, all the Apple and Spotify stuff. And then so you have time to pitch internally to Spotify for an editorial playlist, so you can start people getting the pre-orders going and share that out. What else? There's like a whole bunch of stuff that you just kind of have to work backwards from. Every single collaborator was fantastic. Everybody did what they said they were going to do in a timely fashion. I guess that's what you get when you work with pros, right? Yeah. People do what they say they're going to do. So that was great. A couple times I was slightly in a panic because I had one of the busiest summers of my entire life, album notwithstanding. And I was just kind of freaking out, like, how the hell am I going to do all of this? So I worked many a weekend to make it happen. Many times I was like, AJ, that's my husband, AJ, we need to record this like tomorrow night. Can you practice right now?
Oh, so he's a musician as well?
But he is, yeah.
Awesome.
He plays drums and guitar and a little bit of bass. So as long as he has time to practice, I think I gave him enough time this go around. Then the recording session is, pain-free for both of us.
Oh, yeah.
So,
but yeah, this album came together really well.
Oh yeah, awesome. That's awesome to hear. How does a collaboration work? Like how is that kind of back and forth? Does it vary like song to song, or do you kind of have like kind of a working template that you kind of go off of?
It definitely varies song by song, but I'm trying to think on this album in particular. Most of the time I would have, like a slightly elevated foundational track for somebody to hear. And when I would send it to them, I'd have in mind what I wanted them to do for it already. So in the case of Alex, who collaborated with me on 2 of the tracks, I had, let's say Your Demise, for example. I was like, okay, I have this cool track. It's not quite grimy enough. Like, can you just put a little secret sauce, put some polish on it, layer some of your favorite synths in there, and just sort of beef it up? And he did exactly that, and it worked so beautifully. Same with Cult Movie. That's kind of what happened with those. I'd say the different collaboration, the most different one on the album, was that Army of Me cover that you mentioned, Julian. And that was a case where Simon and I had worked together previously on a Blue Monday cover, like years and years ago. And we just sort of connected again recently, and we're like, hey, we should work on another song. That Blue Monday thing was really fun. And we were throwing ideas back and forth as to what song to cover. and he suggested Army of Me, and Simon then produced that killer instrumental and handed it to me to put vocals on, and then he was kind enough to allow me to put it on the album because it fits so well amongst all of the other tracks and just the overall vibe.
Yeah, for sure.
So yeah, that one was a little different than usual. Usually it's me sending out, mostly 3/4 completed track to somebody else.
Nice.
And so do sometimes they come back with like lyrics for like their vocals and stuff like that, or do you still kind of take care of that part of it?
Usually, so I had 2 guest vocalists on this album. For the Anywhere With You track with Jordan Fiction, yes, I was like, Jordan, I know I want you to do the second verse, and I know we want to kind of trade off on the bridge and then sing the chorus together. Here's the vibe of the track. Here are the lyrics that I've already written. Go ahead, write a verse that you think would fit in your, voice, but that works with my voice as well. And he did that. So it was great. I was like, perfect. That is exactly what I wanted. Thank you.
Yeah. And going back to like the Army of Me cover, and you've released like a cover album in the past. What is the procedure for doing a cover? Like is it, I'm not aware of like kind of the specifics. Is it a thing that you can kind of just do, or are there like a lot of hoops that you have to jump through before you can kind of like get that produced?
There aren't a ton of hoops. Most digital distributors have an option. It's basically just a little checkbox that says, is this a cover?
Oh, okay.
And they will, on your behalf, go about securing a cover license so that all the streams and digital sales and downloads that you get automatically have the fee, or I guess the percentage. I think it's 9 cents per download or something that automatically gets funneled to the rights holders.
Okay.
So it's as simple as that in most cases. Something like Bandcamp, which doesn't have that sort of built into it, they, I think, explicitly say like no covers on Bandcamp, but people totally do it.
Yeah. That's about right.
Whether it's legal or not is another question. There are services like Easy Song Licensing where you can have them secure a cover license for you in bulk, depending on how many downloads that you foresee having. And then you manually have to like keep track of, okay, I've sold over 100 digital downloads of this song. It's time to then ping Easy Song Licensing again for another 100 bundle, if you will.
I see. Yeah, I've always been curious about that. I mean, obviously, if you're just like a cover band that's just performing live, I mean, that's whatever, right? Because you're just performing it live, like you're not releasing an album or anything like that. But I would imagine I had always imagined it was quite a bit different, like if you're actually like recording something that's going out.
Yeah, it's different. I have a plan to release several covers as singles over the next few months because I've been doing little tiny cover snippets on Instagram, and the very second one that I did went viral and my account just like freaking shot up. It was incredible. But now people are like, when are you releasing these?
Right.
Every day I'm like, it's been 3 weeks, why isn't this out yet?
Right.
So in this case, it'll just be that simple checkbox in my distributor, but I will not be putting them on Bandcamp just because of the headache that would create for me.
Yeah, don't blame me there.
Yeah. That's kind of an interesting like catch-22 situation to be in, right? Like when it comes to like putting like a creative work out there is, it's great to have people wanting more, but there's instantly that like kind of sense of like entitled ownership where it's like, you're behind on your deadline of releasing this cover of this, Instagram reel that you released. And it's like, it was never gonna, it was just an Instagram reel. Like, I can do it someday, but that wasn't in the cards.
Yeah.
Welcome to the internet.
I'm not just sitting twiddling my thumbs waiting for,
Yeah.
In the meantime, there's a lot that goes into that. even just if I had all the time in the world, it would take a while to produce some of these things.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I get it. Like if you're not doing it actively, you don't really know all of the different things that go into it. So
For sure.
I get it. I'm just super grateful because honestly, I had given up on social growth. I'm like, people they'll find me, they'll be like a game release. Like maybe when Streets of Rogue 2 comes out, I'll get a handful of people that find me there.
Right.
Mhm.
And I just sort of, back in July, jumped on Instagram as sort of I guess it was an experiment. I was like, can I make this a weekly habit so that I have something to post every week? I know, let me just do little, dark, moody electronic synthwave cover slices because I can crank those out really easily and people like covers. And they freaking blew up. I could not believe it. I went from a very steady 7,300 on Instagram for like 3 years. And I'm at almost 38,000 now. And that was since July.
That's
awesome.
Big jump. Yeah.
Yeah.
Huge jump.
Yeah.
Huge jump.
Oh, yeah.
That first one has over 1 million views on it already.
Ooh-wee.
Jesus,
Nice.
what the heck? Why wasn't I doing this 3 years ago?
Right.
Oh.
It's
Anyway, it's wacky.
It's weird how that stuff works. I've recently I've started to do like some like kind of clip out stuff from our show and then turn them into like YouTube videos. And I was like, I'm new to YouTube. Like I've never edited video or anything like that, so I don't expect this to do anything. And we've hit like numbers on that stuff like way faster than I ever thought we would have. And it's just like I should have been doing this like years ago. Like I really didn't think there was any chance of like there being any growth here anymore because I feel like everybody who's going to have an audience has an audience now, and it's hard. You can't really break in, but it seems like it's still possible. I mean, we're also not aiming for anything like ridiculous, but it's just I expected our videos to be getting like 1 to 2 views, if that, and it's like to see things get like over 100 views is kind of crazy. So yeah,
it's awesome.
It's it's fun, and it's also really fun, like just like doing a new thing, right? Like having like a new. I mean, obviously your plate is pretty full, but at the same time, I think it probably also, besides like self-promotion and stuff like that, it's also just kind of like a fun little challenge for yourself, right? To just like kind of play around with. Yeah,
exactly. That's kind of why I started doing those little cover slices in the first place. It was sort of like, well, I could watch an extra hour of Netflix every night, or I could do something productive,
right.
And 10 minutes in, it's like getting the motivation to start something at 9 o'clock at night. A little challenging sometimes, but
it's not easy.
Now that I have it into my routine, it feels weird not to do it.
Right.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, I did that sort of as almost like a habit builder for myself, just to be productive instead of doing something dumb like watch TV, and it ended up working really well for me. So
Oh yeah.
Who knew? It's been interesting.
Yeah. Do you find it difficult to unplug? Like, there's a lot of talk about work-life balance lately, and I think it tends to be different for like a creative person versus like, a person like that's kind of, grinding for like, whatever social credit. But is it difficult for you to just kind of like kick back and relax?
It's not. I highly value my relaxation time. I find that it keeps me more focused during my work hours, for sure.
Excellent.
So like, I really like having weekends and evenings to just do nothing. Chances are I'm probably keeping up on like house chores and stuff instead of relaxing.
Right.
But I do really like having that balance, for sure.
Nice. Well, we're running out of time with you today, Megan, but kind of one of the last things I wanted to ask about the album, obviously you put a lot into it. You've been working on it for a couple years. When you complete a project like that, is there ever like, kind of like with like video game developers, right? Like they always have like ideas that are they weren't quite ready for the final product. Like, do you have like bits and pieces of songs that are kind of just didn't quite make it into the album, but you're like, next time though?
I have one song that went through, I want to say like 6 different iterations. It started completely different to where it ended up, and because it's so different, that first incarnation could be its own thing at some point. I might revisit it. I don't know. I wasn't really feeling it then, so
Right.
I don't know if I'm going to feel it in the future.
Right.
But pretty much everything that I wanted to do for the album is on the album, and there's not a bunch of scraps lying around, which is cool.
No, that's great.
That is cool.
It's got to be a good feeling, right? Like you put it all out there, it's done. You know, obviously you've got other stuff in the works, but like that massive undertaking, you know, is the way that you wanted it, and it's out there for people to buy and stream and enjoy.
Yes. And if you guys haven't seen the music video, there's actually 3 music videos for this album, but the one that launched with the album itself last Friday, For Your Demise, if you haven't seen that, definitely check it out. It's very spooky season appropriate.
I haven't checked out that yet. I need to. You did one for Entity.
Correct? Yes, there's one for Entity. There's
that one was
also
really
one
cool.
for Forgive Me.
Okay, and I haven't seen that one. I need to go check. Like,
Got to
check
catch
this
up,
out.
Julian.
I do. Well, Megan, I have told you this like via correspondence, but I wanted to get it like as a matter of record for the show. We have the best theme song. Thank you so
good.
much. It's so good.
Yay! I'm so glad.
Like, I mean, you nailed it. Like both times, right? Like for the Nerds Without Pants theme song, like I said, well, I want something like sexy and sticky, because that's kind of funny to me, because the show is absolutely not that, but the name of the show is Nerds Without Pants, so like it just kind of, it would be very funny to me if it's this very like almost erotic like synthy like slow jam, and you nailed that. Also, all of the interstitial stuff was incredible, but then for this, you know, it's a very different vibe, and I said no, it's really trying to go for like a 60s mod style, and like, you know, these are the inspirations, and then like both times you're like, well, here's what I've got, like let me know if you need any changes. I'm like, no, that's actually perfect.
Yeah, I'm so glad. Thanks. I'm very stoked they're working out for you. You are the best kind of client that doesn't have edits for me. I love that.
Yeah, for the interstitials, like especially for this one, I was like, yeah, I just want to kind of hear like what Megan McDuffie would do if she was doing a Mega Man soundtrack, and then a Final Fantasy soundtrack, and then a Skyrim soundtrack, and a Mass Effect soundtrack, and then you were just like, okay, here we go, and I'm like, yeah, that's perfect. That's exactly what I was hoping for.
Sweet.
So yeah, it's just been awesome. And like, you know, so obviously I edit the show every week, and then I do listen to the finished product just as a matter of like quality control, and I make mental notes of like things to do better in the future. But every time the show starts, I just have the biggest grin on my face. Like it's just so much fun.
I love that.
I do have an idea for like a refresh of it, like when we hit like 5 years. So hopefully you're available when that time comes. I'll probably try to reach out to you like a good like 9 months beforehand, just because like who knows what the future holds, right? Like, you know, you could have like so many different projects like on deck at that point that you might be like, sorry, like just can't do it this time. But hopefully that is a possibility, because I do have a fun thing to do at that point. But man, even if we just keep this for like the next 10 years, like holy shit, it's just I'm grinning just talking about it right now. It's such a great theme song. It's the best theme song.
I'm so glad. And yes, please do reach out to me if you do in fact have 9 months of like lead up time. I think I could probably make that work.
Excellent.
Right on.
Well, Megan, you know, I know like our time is, you know, kind of up with you, and you got to get backstage to kind of get ready for the musical performance. So I'll let you get to that. But before you head back there, is there anything upcoming that you want to point people towards? I mean, obviously, Crimson Legacy available now. Go listen to it. Go stream it. Go buy it. Go watch some music videos. But is there anything upcoming that you also want to like shout out?
The album's been like the thing for so long. So yes, I'll reiterate that. It's out on all major platforms. I have, like I said, several music videos. There's actually another one coming next week.
Awesome.
Aside from that, I guess keep your eyes and ears out for the I guess, is today the 18th?
It is.
It is.
Yes.
Okay, so today comes out the Halloween and Ash vs. Evil Dead crossover game from Way Forward and Retro Realms, or not Retro Realms, Boss Team Games. The soundtrack is not available anywhere except for my YouTube. So
Okay.
if you want to check it out, aside from in-game, my YouTube channel is where it's at. Also, keep your eyes and ears open for Streets of Rogue 2, which is coming at some point.
I thought I heard you say that, and I was like, oh, now I'm interested in that game. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It's looking real good.
Nice.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And as every week, we have Megan's information in the show notes, but now you have like a personality to go with the voice, so you're personally invested now. So go click that link and then find all the cool stuff that she's working on and follow her where you can follow her. But Megan,
go do it.
thank you so much for joining us. I hope we get to talk to you again in the future. It's always a fun time. And
thank you so much.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for asking me to be here.
Of course, yeah. And obviously, the best of luck to you in your future projects. It's always a hoot to see you pop up on Twitter with like a new game coming out or a new music video or something like that. And it's like, yeah, like that's really awesome. She did our theme song.
Woohoo!
All right. Well,
Thanks
thank you,
so much,
Megan.
guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And now, a word from our sponsors.
Have you been looking for the state's top applesauce ranch? Well, look no further. Located conveniently in one place we will read too fast for you to remember, Ross's Applesauce Ranch is the #1 applesauce ranch in not only our state, but in 3 states. Ross's Applesauce Ranch raises all its applesauce ethically and tells them stories about dragons, ensuring that when you take your applesauce home, it not only tastes good, it's well educated. So stop on into Ross's Applesauce Ranch today and tell them Chris sent you.
Ladies and gentlemen, taking the stage, performing her song Cult Movie from her new album, Crimson Legacy, Megan McDuffee.
Calling all the freaks and all the dreamers of the darkest dreams. Let me whisper promises of all your dreadful fantasies. Serpentine, the melody devours as it coils around, giving you the pleasure of escaping into writhing sounds.
right, and we're back. Thanks again to the wonderful Megan McDuffie for sitting in for the interview and also for performing tonight. But now it's time to kick off the regular part of the show.
Great.
And Justin, I think I'll actually kick this part off myself.
Okay, fine.
Because, or did you have something you feel like?
No,
like-
I had a question, just a general question.
Okay.
You know, since I started out the show pretty normal. But now I feel like I need to say weird things to make up for that.
Okay, that's fine.
A friend of mine at work and myself are throwing around the idea of remaking the Golden Girls, but with a full cast of just beans.
Okay.
And we want to know. We're trying to figure out what is the most promiscuous bean. It's a serious question.
That would be a French green bean.
A French green bean.
The French style.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I've been throwing out, like, you know, pinto beans probably, or possibly pink beans. The beans in refried beans. You know.
I don't know if
they're getting mashed up a lot. That's all I'm saying.
They are getting mashed up a lot.
Yeah.
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 I don't know. I mean, are we counting the clitoris as a bean? Because
no. That's a different. No, that did come up, and I said no. Absolutely not. We can't do that. That's
okay.
It's too on the nose.
I mean.
Also, we're trying to put this on network TV, Julian. We can't do that. That's fair. Yeah.
Is it a Fall Guys bean?
No.
They get around.
Yeah, they mentioned those, and I was like,
they're writhing around all over the place.
Yeah. But no, probably not.
Yeah, I don't know, man. That's a tough one.
You out there in the universe, weigh in on what you think the most promiscuous bean is. It's the question that's sweeping the nation.
Yes.
Okay, now we can be normal again. What do you got,
okay, requisite amount of weirdness complete.
Yeah, I had to do it. I'm sorry.
Yes. So since really let's see. No, yeah. Since the last time we spoke, I have finished Warhammer 40K Space Marine 2.
Oh, fun.
Last time I was like right at the end, and I did decide on Saturday to just go ahead and power through that before I hopped over to Metaphor, because I was like, I'm so close. Like there's really no excuse to not finish it. That game is really fucking cool, man.
Nice.
It to the point that I lost track of how many times I would just like see something and be like, yo, that's cool. Like just a lot of really cool, I've said cool too many times. A lot of really amazing, like vistas and kind of big moments, and just like there's a sense of scale to the Warhammer shit that
that's very true.
I kind of wasn't prepared for.
Yeah.
And they do a really good job of letting you see a lot of that scale. Every time that I thought that I had seen kind of everything there was to see, they would kind of throw something else in, and it kind of threw me for a loop. And a really cool thing is, like in the back, probably like back third of the game, you actually do end up fighting like some regular human opponents, like not Space Marines, but like humans. And they squish real good. Like they just pop when you shoot them, and like when you go in with your melee, like it really does an excellent job of highlighting the difference between a Space Marine and a regular person.
Right.
Which I think, like, you know, Halo obviously is borrowing a lot. I think that's kind of pretty much the origin of Space Marines. I mean, technically it's a Heinlein with Super Troopers, but, or not Super Troopers, Starship Troopers.
Right.
Super Troopers, very different thing. Mother of God. But, you know, Halo, I never thought that it did a good job of making me feel like Master Chief was different than a regular person, right? His footsteps didn't feel as heavy as I thought they should for how big he's supposed to be. Like when you're standing near people, like I never really got that sense of scale. Maybe because you're in first person.
That's probably it. Yeah. A little bit of it anyway.
But here, Titus feels weighty. Like every time even when you're just like walking around like the hub ship, like in between missions, there's definitely like this feeling of weight and power behind like every footstep. And also, once you get into like the missions and stuff like that, it really makes you feel like you're kind of indestructible. Now, I was playing on normal, I'm sure that would be a different feeling if I was playing on the harder difficulty, but I also think the harder difficulty is probably geared more towards multiplayer, because the game is they really want you to play this co-op.
Yeah.
To the point that you're even joining a server when you're playing single player. So that if you want, you can just like invite people very easily into your game.
I got you.
It was a thing when I first saw it. I was like, man, I don't know how I feel about that, but you can actually switch to completely offline mode and it's fine.
Okay, cool.
But and there is a completely separate co-op campaign. There's like other squads that are doing other things throughout the course of the story, and you get to play as them when you're doing co-op. And that's also where like the character customization comes in, where you're changing your armor and coloring and stuff like that. I wish that you could do that on the single player campaign, but I understand, even without me knowing jack shit about Warhammer, I do get that like their armor kind of tells the story of their service record.
Right.
Like they all, you see like different like accoutrement or like medals or, different pauldrons and stuff like it all means stuff. I have no idea what it means.
You're asking the wrong guy if you want. Yeah, I got no idea.
But I can tell that it's supposed to mean shit, right? And I do have like more questions than answers like at the end of this game's campaign. I will the audience was really good in the Discord about answering my last question, so I'll do that again here. You're playing the bad guys, right? Like that's the Space Marines and like the whole like they're the bad guys of the Warhammer universe, right?
Julian, I think everyone is the bad guy in the Warhammer universe. I think
okay, so. Like there is no.
I don't think anybody's like actually the good guy. I think they all are kind of off and bad for the most part. Like, okay, the Space Marines are the Empire. The Emperor. They're
the Empire, and like, obviously, like, they're super space fascists, right? Like, that's obvious. But I mean, even just like their whole regalia, right? Like, it's all like skulls and like big broadswords and like it's symbolism that you would use for evil, like capital E evil.
Yeah, I don't think there's actually good in there. Maybe I could be wrong, and I'd be curious to know. Yeah, if somebody out there knows more than me, probably does. But I get the sense in the 40K universe that everybody is kind of evil in their own way. It's just different flavors of it. That way you don't feel bad pitting them up against each other. Like everybody hates one another, and it's fine because they're all evil. It doesn't matter. No one wins in the 40K universe. Right. I think.
I did see a thing. So there's these humans. They're called the Cadians that are like holding the fort on like a couple of the planets in the campaign. Obviously I've never heard of them before, but I could tell they're just regular humans. But, Callie, she, on one of her streams, she said, well, I don't think you guys should be here. Like Space Marines are here. You guys can go home. To which apparently that was a massive faux pas. And she actually made a fun bullshit apology stream because apparently the Cadians' home planet was completely destroyed, during a war. So, she didn't realize that she was doing an insensitivity there, but
who would?
Yeah, it's I do wish that there was at least an attempt made at explaining some shit for people who might not be in the know.
Yeah, 40K just does not care if you.
It really doesn't. And it is very interesting. There's no way that I'm going any deeper. Like there's way too much.
There's a lot.
It's way too dense. But I would definitely play another of these games. Hopefully it doesn't take almost 15 years for them to make another one. This one seems like it's doing pretty well. So we'll see. I will say, there's like a character that is masked the whole time that then takes off their mask at the end, and I could tell it was supposed to be a big deal, and I was just like, Okay.
Yeah. No, that's a good reaction for it.
You're a guy with a face.
Yep.
And Titus knew who you were, so cool.
Yep. That sounds about right.
Yeah. But no, it's really fun to play. I had a really good time with it. I do wish that, like, there were, and I felt this way with Star Wars Outlaws. And maybe this is just the reality of, like, modern game design right now, just because of how expensive it is to make games of this scale. Because, it's a bloody gorgeous game. And like I said, like, they really put a shit ton of detail into it. And, like, it's one of these games where, like, unlike like a Dynasty Warriors game where there's a shit ton of stuff on the screen, but most of it is not really reactive.
Yeah.
Like when you see a big swarm of enemies in Space Marine 2, it's reactive. So like when you see these big swarms of like flying Tyranids, you can shoot those down.
Yeah.
Now there's not a real big point to do it, but they are 100% present in that scene. So there's a lot going on in this game. So I get it. But I do wish that there had been like maybe one or two like big, like cool set piece moments that were different from just the regular run and gun gameplay. So like there's a part where someone picks you up on a tank. And I was like, oh, here we go. Like I'm going to have this like tank level. And no, they just take you to the next place you need to be.
Okay.
And I was like, ah.
Wow.
And then like someone else rolled up in this really cool mech. And I was like, oh, I'm going to pilot a mech. And no, you just follow behind the guy in the mech. And it might be a thing in the lore where like a space marine would not sully himself by piloting a mech. I have no idea.
Yeah.
Oh, Justin.
Okay.
They're called ultramarines, right?
Uh-huh.
And I thought that was just because they're like Marines, but ultra.
Uh-huh.
But no, I shit you not. They're fighting for the glory of Ultramar, and I lost my fucking shit.
That's good. That's good. That's real dumb. I like it.
It's so dumb.
Yeah. That's real dumb.
But at the same time, like I said, like I kept like getting to a new thing. I was like, that's really cool.
Yeah.
So like it's, and I posted like one picture and I was like, yeah, my inner 16-year-old is so stoked right now.
Right.
It's
right.
Like a lot of like so many parts of the game just look like a late 80s, early 90s, like heavy metal cover, like album cover in like the best possible way.
Yeah.
Right. Like it's really cool. I highly recommend it.
Right.
And I actually do want to go back and play multiplayer. I think I might hit up, I'm sure he's playing it because I don't see how he wouldn't, but I might hit up my work friend Kale and see if he's down for getting some co-op missions going on that. Because I want to see how that goes down. And, haven't really, he always wants to do like multiplayer stuff. And I haven't really been able to outright say, it's like, I don't really do multiplayer. Man.
Yeah.
Like, that's just not my scene. But that's the thing. This may be surprising to listeners that haven't been around for a long time, but I'm an extremely shy and introverted person, even when it comes to like online gaming. Like this right here, what we're doing is like 95% of the social interaction that I get in a week.
Yeah.
Outside of that, it's like,
you'll have that. Yeah.
Yeah. Hold on. I need to open the door for my cat.
You're good.
He does it all the time.
This is the hum break.
I swear he's like the Eric Andre meme with shooting Hannibal Buress and then asking who would do this, but with the door. Like he shuts the door and then he starts meowing. He's like, who would close the door? And it's like, you did, dipshit.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's Warhammer 40K Space Marine 2. Again, highly recommend. I want to play more. I'm not necessarily interested enough to play one of the other 40K games. Like I had bought the 40K, like I forget the name of it. I want to say it's Inquisitor Martyr. It's like the Diablo style game. And I kind of bounced right off of that.
No idea. Yeah. It sounds like a thing it could be. I know the one I remember being partially interested in was
Is it
Rogue Trader? Yeah.
Yeah, that's like the really super crunchy RPG one.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. I was like, that might be okay. And then I kind of watched it for a little bit. I was like, I don't have any fucking idea what's going on.
Yeah.
So
it's like take all of that deep lore that I was talking about and then also dump like the most complex like CRPG system. That
and then expect you to kind of know what's going on a little bit. And I'm like, no, I don't think I'm going to get into that. So
yeah. No, I get it.
Yeah. Well.
Oh,
what?
I'm sorry. There, things are a little bit discombobulated because, we kicked things off with the interview with Megan, which super happy to get it. Glad to do it.
It was great.
But before we get too much deeper in, a couple quick announcements. One, go check out the podcast Nerds a Broadcast. This is a podcast hosted by Phoebe, the Let's Play Princess, and her co-host TB. If you have been listening to any of the Final Fantasy interviews on A Gamer Looks at 40, you will have heard both of them at various places in those episodes. It's a new show. I've only listened to the first episode so far, and they're about 15 episodes deep now. The reason it took me this long to check it out is that it had not been available on my podcatcher for this entire time. And every time that I would see her post like a new episode, I would go check, and it's like, nope, still not there. And finally, I could actually find it in my podcatcher because it's a couple things. I'm not going to point listeners to a show if it's going to be hard for them to find it. Yeah. It's kind of the reason why I pretty much stopped promoting Nerds Without Pants that last year and a half because it was so hard to find.
You'll get that. Yeah.
And then the other thing is with a new podcast, I always kind of like to wait and see okay, prove to me that you're actually going to do this, right?
Right.
If you release 3 episodes over this course of 2.5 months, I'm like, okay, well, I don't. But no, they've been pretty consistent and everything.
Awesome.
So they keep the show pretty short. At least it seems that way. Like the first episode was about an hour.
Okay.
But they basically alternate as who hosts, and they kind of break it into a game topic and then a media topic and then a talking point and then they're out.
Nice.
So for us it's okay, that's our warm up,
right?
But at the same time, it's not gonna. It's a fun show. It's not going to take too much of your day. And I don't think there's enough women in video game podcasting. So it's cool to see a new show co-hosted by one.
Yeah, sounds good.
Check out the Nerds of Broadcast and let them know that the State Select sent you.
Okay. Question. Nerds of Broadcast or
a broadcast?
A broadcast. Okay.
Yes. And I'll have a link for it in the the episode notes. A broadcast because she is in America and TB is in the UK. So they're abroad.
Oh, okay. All right. Now I get it. I'm really dumb when it comes to puns. Okay. Got it. Understood.
No problem. Other thing, and this isn't so much a PSA because this project got funded in 2 hours. But I will have a link in the episode notes as well for the Kickstarter campaign for the EGM Compendium, which as soon as I found out about this, I went and backed it right away. It is a comprehensive history of Electronic Gaming Monthly. And a lot of the ex-EGM editors have contributed to it. It's got it covers the entire run of the magazine.
Oh, that's cool.
With a lot of behind the scenes stuff and things like that. I think there's some interviews in there and stuff. And I actually backed the version that comes with a poster of every single cover.
Nice.
Because I'm gonna get that shit framed.
Yeah.
Because as you and I have talked about, not so much here, but definitely on the old show, video game magazines were such a big part of my gaming background.
Mine too. Yeah.
And EGM #1 with a bullet.
Yeah.
So super stoked to see this thing, and it looks beautiful. So
hell yeah.
I'm basically just saying that if you want to go and check it out and maybe make sure that you're getting a copy because, I don't know how many they're going to produce. Like I said, it got fully funded and then some right away.
Yeah.
But you never know, once a project like that comes to fruition, are they going to keep it in print or is it just they're going to print a little bit above what the backers did, right? You never know. So, just kind of a PSA to make sure that you get one if you're at all interested in that.
Yeah.
especially if you're a fan of like video game history like I am, it seems like just like a no-brainer to have this on your shelf.
Oh yeah.
That's all of the announcement type stuff out of the way. So
Great.
Justin,
What
have you been up to?
Let's see. So I remembered a few things that I forgot to talk about last time.
Excellent. We don't have much.
No,
this
we
week.
really don't. And that's fine. I'm trying to think of when it was. It was probably like right after the podcast before our last one, before we kind of took that break or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I finished Starcom Unknown Space.
Yes. How was that?
It
Like,
was
all
good.
said and done.
It was really good. It isn't gonna blow you away or anything, but I really liked it overall. I only have like one major beef with it, and that is towards the end of the game. This is like kind of small spoilers, but not really, because I'm not. It's mostly puzzle related. They introduced kind of this mechanic, and then expected me to just kind of know what to do with it. And for 2 days, I basically rolled around just trying to figure out what the hell I was supposed to do. Because I was right at the end game. Like I was like, okay, I have killed something called the mothership. I'm pretty sure I'm at the end game here, but I couldn't figure out how to turn this thing on. And I had to use this gravity gun to move these things, but it kind of didn't really like. It should have at some point just screamed at me, "Listen, idiot, use the gravity gun and move these things over here." Because I was like, maybe there's something I need to find. I don't know. I'm like, I was rolling around everywhere. It took me a while to figure it out. And then I looked it up and I was like, oh, I guess I could.
You typically want like a smooth up and down motion if you're trying to turn it on.
Sure. No, it wasn't that. I was just trying to figure out, how to make the ship turn on. There was a whole thing. You had to move these power cores, and like I said, you needed this gravity gun to do it. And they gave it to me and just kind of went, if you fire this, it'll move ships out of the way or whatever. I was like, well, I don't really need that. My whole thing is to get in close and just hammer the button and then they die. That's my whole thing right now. So I don't need the thing that pushes them away. That seems counterintuitive.
That's 100% my Diablo 3 strategy.
Yeah.
It's just like get in close and just hammer on the button.
Yeah, pretty much. I had like I just would shield up and just get in there and just fucking just like fire like I had a bunch of these front loaded cannons basically that were pretty powerful, and I would just aim those at the person and then fire everything at them all at once. It was pretty great. The game ship combat's really fun. Just because you can kind of like break it as much as you want, as long as you can just as much as you can build onto there. It's pretty good.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, it's fun.
I don't know why I think of this in the same space, but it did pop up today. I was looking on the Xbox store. Wildermyth is coming to console.
Oh, nice.
Very shortly. So I'm looking forward to finally playing that one, because I know you were really high on it.
You
on
should
the
try
PC
it.
A couple years ago.
Yeah. I like it. I don't know if you'd get into that one. It depends. We'll see.
I like the concept of like, how procedural, not procedural, I guess.
It kind of is.
The way that you can kind of end up telling a story through like the trials and tribulations of your characters.
It's kind of almost similar to like the Nemesis system stories that you would have. It is a little bit similar to that.
Yeah. I've been thinking about the Nemesis system a lot, actually, because I realized that was a big thing that I think that, and again, it fucking sucks that they like patented that system.
Yeah.
Other games should be able to take advantage of it. But like, Star Wars Outlaws would really benefit from like a really dedicated like bounty hunter system.
Yeah.
Because like, so what happens if you get in like the real shit with a faction?
Yeah.
Is basically they just are hunting. It's like you're at like full stars in GTA.
Yeah.
And it's just that way constantly. But wouldn't it be cooler if like a bespoke bounty hunter from that faction started hunting you?
Right.
And if you ran afoul of them in the middle of a mission, something would happen, and then like maybe you defeat them and then they come back with like some damage, or like another bounty hunter takes their place or whatever. Like there's shit that you can do there, and I think that would have really elevated that game. And then I'm just like, probably about 3 times a year, I think like I should replay the 2 Mordor games because I really love that whole thing.
Yeah, well, Wildermyth has some of that, but it's not exactly the same. Like not with enemies, but with like your characters, like and some of the weird choices that you can make and kind of just roll with are pretty fun.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, Starcom was really good. I liked it, but it, like that last little bit, I couldn't help like the entire time I was like, I just needed like a little bit better nudge than they gave me in that direction because they just kind of introduced the thing and they were like, I remember the hint exactly. It was this one of the people on my ship was like, don't we have something that we need to move? And I was like, no.
That could be anything.
Yeah, well, it's like a thing where it's like, this mechanic has not been in the game. It like you're introducing at the very end of the game this whole like thing of move stuff in outer space to another location. This has not been a thing before,
right?
To the point where the things that I thought that the things that I had to move to this other thing, I legitimately just thought they were there for combat purposes, like because you could blow them up and they'd explode real good. So I thought you could just hit them like when enemies were around. I was like, oh, that's kind of a neat thing that we can, I can lure these people out there and blow this up and do damage to them. But no, that's totally not what they were. I was like, oh, well, okay. Yeah, he just kind of introduced this weird mechanic and then expected me to know what to do. And I did not because I'm dumb. But yeah, other than that, though, it was pretty good. I think it was like made by one guy. I think one guy for the most part made it. It was a pretty good game. Have to say.
It's cool. I mean, I don't know. You're the only person I've heard talk about it, so hard to say like how successful it is. But props to like single developer games, doing well the last few years, right? Like Vampire Survivors, Balatro, this one, I mean, I know they picked up like extra developers as the games got bigger.
Oh yeah.
But at least initially, right? Like it was like a single person project. So
like I know this one has like I think somebody else may have done the art and somebody else may have done like the music and stuff like that. But for the most part, the game itself is just one guy, as far as I can tell. Let's see, what else did I do? I gave a third or fourth chance, I guess, to Final Fantasy VII Rebirth.
Oh man.
Yeah, I can't get back into it. I tried. I did try. I don't think it's gonna happen.
I'm worried about that myself.
Yeah.
My plan when my PS5 Pro comes in is to just set it to easy because at this point I've forgotten all of the combat.
Yeah,
and just try to and then just mainline it.
It was on easy for me, and I've forgotten the combat, and I was having a hell of a time trying to remember how to do that. It wasn't so much the combat as much as I kind of was in the middle of a dungeon, or not really a dungeon, but like just out in the world, and I was like, I don't know where I'm supposed to go. I couldn't remember how to like jump over things. And do all that. I was like, oh boy, this is going to go bad. And I wandered around for like half an hour and then found my way back to Coral and played some Queen's Blood and was like, I still remember how to play this. That's good. Mm-hmm. But then I was just kind of like, I don't really feel like playing this. And I just kind of put it down. I don't know if I'm going to get back to that one anytime soon. Which bums me out. But at the same time, I'm kind of not surprised by it. But yeah, I did give it another shot. It was rough going. Other than that, I've really only played Metaphor, but not near as much Metaphor as I think people probably think I have.
Yeah, so I'm like 27 hours in now. I've just completed the second major dungeon. And so by that metric, I was like, okay, so Justin's like 60 plus hours in. Like he's like, almost done with the game at this point.
Nope. I am 7 hours behind you, in fact.
Wow.
Yeah, I think I have like 20 something hours, something like that. I played a little bit more of it today. But it was basically, I just played like one of the side dungeons and then I was like, okay, that's enough of that for me today. And I stopped playing it. I'm having a really tough time getting into it. And that's not to say that I think it's bad or anything. I'm just having a really tough time getting into it. I don't think it's the story. I don't think it's like the gameplay itself. I absolutely 100% think it is the structure of an Atlas RPG that absolutely drives me away from them every single time.
Right.
Because
to be clear, because you didn't finish Persona 5 vanilla.
Nope.
You got like a decent chunk of the way through.
Then
you played Royal with the guide.
It's so similar to my experience playing vanilla Persona 5 this time that it's kind of eerie that I have this kind of reaction almost every time to one of their RPGs, because I got to about the second dungeon and then I start going, I just don't want to keep going with this. That's what I did in original Persona 5. It wasn't because I didn't think the game was cool or good or anything like that. I was like, this is a really good game. I just don't really want to play it. I think and I'm 100% certain I know why it is. And I'm pretty sure I've talked about this before, but the structure of their games stresses me the fuck out and I don't like it. I am one of my favorite things in video games, period, but mostly in RPGs, which is why I gravitate towards them, is the concept of magical video game time. And basically what I mean by that is the time in a video game where you get to a certain point and the game is like, all right, now listen. Okay. Like best example is Final Fantasy VII, like the original one. Okay. You get to the end of the game. It's like, okay, Sephiroth is down there in this crater. All right. And we got to stop him right now. Okay. Meteor's coming. The whole world's at stake. We got to go down there. But hold on. Let's spend a couple months breeding and training and racing chocobos before we do any of that. And while we're at it, let's go do this other stuff and get these other things. And that's my favorite part of RPG is basically the time where I can just go, okay, now it's time to do everything else that I want to do. Right. The Yakuza games are very much like that. Between the events that should be hours, maybe hours between each other, you can do like days and months worth of stuff in time wise. It doesn't make any sense, but that's what's fun about it.
Right. I get you.
Yeah.
Right. And I think, so I will say, we talked about this like before Megan got on, and it was actually a kind of a relief to hear you say it, because I am very much enjoying Metaphor, but I will definitely say that I am not as high on it as the rest of the internet appears to be.
Oh yeah, no, I want to stress that I don't think it's a bad game, and I'm still picking it up and playing it for a few hours every day. Like I actively like it. But I'm not as into it as I would hope to be with a game like this. Like that's kind of where it is, because there's no my usual driving force for like when the times when I have sat there and been like, oh yeah, I'm like 60 hours in, it's only been like a week or whatever. The times when I do that, it's usually because I'm like, oh man, I gotta gun through this as fast as I can so I can get to my magical video game time and just do everything that I want to do, and then go into the next thing like way overpowered and just keep going from there, and clean up everything as I go. Like I love that part of video games so much that when I don't get it, it starts to actively push me away from it.
I totally get that. And it's funny because like last week I talked about how there's so many like kind of little quality of life improvements over like the Persona games that I've played, and like things that are just like really smartly designed that I wasn't expecting them to do. And that's all true. That still remains.
I agree.
But there's still been enough things where I'm like, oh, I can't believe you're still doing it this way. And I do think a big part of it for me also is the time crunch. And I realized what it was, and what would fix it for me. It actually, the solution comes from porn games.
Okay.
Because you and I have played a lot of what I call sandbox porn games.
Oh,
where
God,
it's like you've got a town to explore. You've got this, these blocks of time in each
you're
day.
Working a job, and it's kind of like a lifetime simulator for the most part.
Like, are you going to go to work right now? Are you going to go to school? Are you going to talk to this person?
Right.
Are you going to go do this mini game? Like a whole bunch of things that you can do.
Yeah.
But most of those games give you 3, if not 4 blocks of time in each day to do
No,
shit.
some of them give you even more than that, you know?
Some of them do. Like sometimes there's ones where it's like that you can even do like late night or early morning, right? It's like early morning, afternoon.
There's one I play where it's like things take up a certain amount of hours, basically, and like you have 24 hours in a day, but yeah, you have to go to sleep by a certain time, or else you're gonna wake up late and do all this other stuff. So like you manage it that way. Yeah. But if you need to stay up late and just skip the next day, you can do that too.
Yeah. And there might be items that let you like kind of power through, right?
Yeah,
like you get some of your stamina back if you need it. But yeah, and that gives you a lot of freedom in order to tackle that stuff. And now there are still story crucial parts where it's like, you know, the story will move on or something, or you have to be at a certain place at a certain time.
Absolutely.
Or, you know, if you go talk to this person, that's going to lock you into the rest of the day with them. Mm-hmm. That still happens. But because you have so many more blocks of time within each day, you don't feel like you're crunching for that. And Metaphor, and I guess now that I think about it, I mean, definitely Persona 3 Reload was this way. I feel that Persona 5 had 3.
No, they had 2. It was still 2.
Okay, yeah, so you only have 2 blocks of time that you can do stuff. Mm-hmm. And also it's like a lot of times the stuff that takes time, it's like, really, that's going to take this whole section of the day? And it's like a very trivial thing, and it's like, I wish that you had more opportunities within the day to do shit, and B, some of those things could be combined with other things, you know, that are smaller things, right? Like, you know, if you're just going to go talk to somebody and like it's just a talk, like you're not going to go spend like a significant amount of time doing something with them. Yeah, it's just like a quick conversation. I feel that you should be able to do that, and it almost like the way the battle system works, where like certain things will do like half a turn icon. Right. Half a day time icon, right? And then you can still do something else that's smaller. Yeah. Here's the thing though, because I have dedicated myself to the idea that I'm not going to look at a guide. I'm going to just try to play it as it is and have my story and experience it. Mm-hmm. And this game, even more than like the other Persona games, feels like a game where, because of what you're doing, which is running for an office. Yeah. It almost feels like they're wanting you to say, you have to choose you have to choose, right? Like, you're not going to be able to see everything. You have to decide what to prioritize as a future ruler. Yeah. Which would be fine if it wasn't for the fact that we know that you can do everything you can do 100% run if you're doing it right.
I know. That's what drives me nuts about it.
If they told you up front, it's impossible to do everything, so you need to choose, I'd be like, okay. So as I go through, I'm going to prioritize who I want to spend time with,
the things you want to see,
what I want.
Right.
Yeah, like, you know, maybe it's like there's no way that you can get all of your royal virtues up to level 5. So you're going to have to decide what kind of leader do you want to be, right? I think that would be very cool. But we know that's bullshit because, like, literally the day the game came out, there were 100% completion guides up. So it is possible. And so in the back of my mind, I'm always like, kind of like my eyes twitching a little bit.
There's part of me that's been going like, you know what, I should just look at one of those and just kind of do it. I think for the most part, I've been doing pretty much the way that you should, because I don't think I've fucked up too bad or anything like that. It's not Persona level yet where I'm just like, oh yeah, no, I'm screwing up, but that feeling is always there, like where I'm just like, no, I fucked this up. Like there was one guy that I always hate the moments where you meet a new character and you're like, okay, let's see what this guy's all about, and then it's like, you need this stat, and you're like, I don't have that fucking stat, god damn it. Like that shit's depressing. Like,
at least with Metaphor, those stats level much faster than they do in the Persona games.
They do.
It took me a really long time to get Eloquence to level 2, but that was the only one that I was struggling to level up. Yeah. Because I'm like almost level 3 on Courage now. Mm-hmm. So that stuff has been progressing at a pretty good clip, and I have yet to run into a moment where I haven't met a threshold, other than the first time that, like, you know, when you talk to like the shopkeep and you need like level 2 wisdom. Yeah. But that's kind of to tell you, hey,
Yeah.
You know, there's things that you need to level in order to progress with certain characters.
Yeah, I ran into one
did it
guy
right away.
where I had to have my imagination up, and I was just like, oh, I'm like, I was like one thing away from having it there, but like, but also I was right at the end of a time limit thing where I was going to have to go do something, so I wasn't going to be able to do it just then.
Yeah.
I don't know. The structure of them stresses me out. It always will. But that's the point of it. It's supposed to, you know, it hurries things along. It adds a level of difficulty, and this is the time you have to prepare for this thing. That's the appeal of it. I get it. It's totally the appeal of the game. It's just like one of those things that I don't think I'll ever vibe with. And that's just
I'm vibing with it more here than the Persona games, but I still feel you. Like,
it's weird. I don't. I think I agree to some extent, but I don't know. I'd have to get further in to see if it. I like how they're doing it this time, but with like it's at least changing things up a lot more instead of just being in the same town all the entire time. Like, not that that's bad. That kind of works for it to some extent, but at the same time, like Persona, you're just like, this is the town. These are the places you can go. Now it's like, no, you're in a different town and there's different places around here and you can go to these things and see this stuff. And that's kind of neat, but I don't know. There's something about that structure where I'm just like, oh man, I'm going to fuck it up. Just always in the back of my mind. And that's why, like, I play it for a few hours. I do like one thing and then it's like, okay, what do I want to do today? I don't know. I think I'm just going to stop for today. And then I do.
You get paralyzed with choice.
Yeah, I do, because I think every single thing I go to do, I think I'm fucking it up.
Yeah.
The other kind of complaint, but not really, is I'm also because of the stress level of the game, I'm also heavily debating if I'm going to turn the combat difficulty down, because I'm getting kind of annoyed by it. I don't think it's too hard. I think a lot of people will think it's just right, and that's fine. I hate the amount of punishing that it is sometimes for dumb shit.
So, yes. So, the bloom started to come off the rose a bit for me when I got to the first major dungeon. Like, literally, like, when I got into the main game after the demo. And I find the difficulty to be wildly unbalanced.
Yes.
For like 95% of the game so far, I'm like sleepwalking through it. There's a lot to unpack here.
No, you're good.
Combat. So like, you know how as you get like 2 levels above enemies, then you can just take them out with just the regular action combat, right?
Yeah.
Like and that's all well and good. That's kind of cool.
I like that.
Couple problems with that. One is that the action part of the combat feels bad.
It's not great. Yeah.
Yeah, especially if you're not using like an actual useful weapon like a sword.
Yeah.
Like if you're using like a staff or an abacus.
Get fucked. Yeah.
It feels real bad.
Yeah. Not great.
And I'll end up taking like damage from enemies because like you get stuck into like an attack animation and they'll hit you from another side or something like that. But also you're getting like shit experience from those fights.
Right.
But you'll get into a situation in a dungeon where that's like 90% of the stuff that you're fighting. So at a certain point, your progression just kind of comes to a screeching halt.
Yeah, until you can find something more powerful that's a pain in the ass to fight. Yeah.
Yeah. And I actually texted you like when I was in the first dungeon, I was like, is it just me or is the leveling glacially slow?
No, that's not you. It's just kind of how it is.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it has started to speed up as I've gotten into the like. Once I got past the first dungeon.
Too bad. Yeah, it's really not too bad, and I still like it. My big thing is like in those like tougher fights, the amount of times where like if you get put on the back foot in one of those fights, get
turn
fucked.
It's like in the Killing Joke, like I bet you had one bad day, and it's like I had one bad turn, and I became the
not
Joker.
Even like a turn, like just one character action. I had one bad character action a couple times, and I honest to God,
no, that's what I mean.
Yes,
like,
yes,
so
okay.
Let's say that like you get an attack repelled, you lose all of your turn icons, and the enemy gets to go, and
or
then
the amount of times that I honest to to God, I cannot wait to get another party member so Stroll can sit on the bench for the rest of the fucking game. The amount of times that motherfucker has gotten me killed from just whiffing an attack for no reason is uncalled for. I'm just like, I cannot wait till you're done. You're so out of this party once I get somebody else. He has fucked it up for me. I don't know how many goddamn times.
Interesting.
It's so bad.
The thing for me, like, is if one of the enemies gets the jump on you in the field,
yeah,
they get like extra turn icons,
yes.
and at that point, like, because they're all so it's twofold. They already have extra turn icons, but then if they manage to hit a weak point, they get additional turn icons. Yeah. So you can easily get into a situation where the fight has just started and all of your characters are about to die.
You're just dead. Yeah. And you can't. You have to spend a turn to resurrect them, and then then it goes back to the enemy, and they're just fucking on you. You're just done. Like like I said, one bad character action, and you're just dead. And I kind of like, this. There's got to be a better way. Like it's so hard to turn the tide of a fight. Like there is a rewind function, which I have utilized quite a bit sometimes in fights like that. And sometimes I'm like, wow, it really was just one bad character action that got me into that. Like, cause it didn't go that way this time. And now I'm fine. But like, holy shit.
But then like the rest of the time, right? Like if you're being really Johnny on the spot about like preemptively getting into the fights and stuff like that, like, yeah. You just steamroll
you just steamroll everything. It's nothing. And but when
then you get into the boss fights where at least so far it's been the situation that I don't like in the back half of Persona games that I've played, where it's like, okay, there are no weaknesses, so it's just a matter of this boss has got a shit ton of health, and you just got to whittle it down. Now I will say, so it's entirely possible that the second major dungeon boss, I just didn't have the one ability that was a weakness, because like in the Persona games, the reason that works is because the main character can store so many different types of abilities within him that you can make up for whatever gaps you have in the rest of the party.
Yes.
You don't have that here, so you can get into a situation where, unless you just magically knew beforehand what you needed for a fight,
you can walk into a fight with the wrong party composition and you're just fucked. And there's also times where, like, it's kind of like almost a random fight that you kind of know you're going to get into, but you don't know what exactly it is, and you have to backtrack if you fuck it up. I didn't have this problem, but I remember thinking, like, oh man, if I would have lost that would have been really shitty. Like there's like a couple traveling fights that happen. And I remember
like what happens if those go bad.
Right? Yeah. Like I was like, would I have just had to backtrack there and get fucked because I didn't have the right party and they just steamrolled me? What, like that would have sucked. Like that wouldn't have been great. Like how was I supposed to know? Now it wasn't too bad, and I'm guessing they probably do tone the difficulty of those down quite a bit. But there was a concern. But I don't know. And I'm kind of wondering if I just turn it down to easy, if I just would have a much less stressful time.
Maybe. So I will say that like the combat system has not been stressful for me. It's just been, there's certain things that just annoy the shit out of me.
Yeah, that's all it is. It's not like it's not hard. Like I'm not having like, oh my God, I'm just dying all the time. I suck at this. It's nothing like that. It's just the minor annoyances that I would just wish would go away. I wonder if it would get rid of.
Yeah. But it's also just like the wildly out of whack. It's like sometimes it's fine, and then other times it's like, okay, just in that one turn, like my party is about to die.
That's what I mean.
And even, I'm just saying like a regular turn, like not even one where they have the advantage. It's just like, well, why did that happen?
Oh yeah.
I don't know. It's weird.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, no, it's crazy.
Now, parts of it that I really do like combat wise, I think that like the job system continues to be excellent.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
I like how quick it is to level jobs when you switch over.
Right.
One thing that was a little bit of a letdown was I got my first adept level job.
Okay.
It's like the evolution of a job. And you would think that you would get all the abilities from the previous job and then some, but no. Actually, it's like a completely new job that starts with its own ability list.
Yeah.
And so basically I got cleric off of healer.
Right.
And the cleric started without the ability to heal. And I was like, that.
Yeah, it does.
That kind of sucks.
You get the light magic, and then you have to level it up to level 3 to get anything to be able to actually use a healing spell.
Yeah, and
which
it's
is
not a big
useful.
deal. I just added, my healing spell as an inherited move, but it's still like, but why do I have to waste that slot?
You can also, kind of use those items that level up the jobs to kind of help out with that stuff. They give you a lot of them.
They give you a lot of those. Yeah,
I do that.
The
every now and
leveling
then.
of them is excellent, right?
Yeah.
Like, so I really appreciate that. But then like some other like things. So like initially I was not too high on the first two party members, and I was worried that I was getting into a Persona 3 situation. So I will say this, like I was going to save, I've been planning on saving most of my Persona 3 talk for a final episode after I finish it. But I am confident in saying that I generally do not like the party in Persona 3, kind of across the board.
That's fair.
And it's not just the kid, the dog, and the robot. It's kind of everybody. And one of the big things for me was, I don't like the way that, Mitsuru and Sonata are written. Because, so look, I've watched a shit ton of anime over the years. I am used to the concept of Japanese high school kids being written like they're goddamn
like they're
grown-ups,
adults. Yeah.
right? That's fine. They take it to an extreme level. They are written
Right,
like
yeah.
they are mid-30s and have all of their shit
you
together.
think they're fucking, yeah, I know exactly what you mean from that game. Yeah, 100%.
And I find them incredibly boring as a result.
Yeah, that's fair.
I was getting that sense out of Hulkenberg and Stroll initially, but then in recent hours, they have started to shine in a way that I really appreciate.
I was kind of in the same boat until I got to the second town, and then they started to show a little bit more personality, and I was like, okay, like Hulkenberg eating everything is great.
Yes.
Like I was just like, okay, no, I'm on board with you now. Like I was kind of like, yeah, they're kind of just like, faithful knight. All right, I get it. And then yeah, they started to get into that. I was like, okay, they're pretty good. I like them a lot now. Actually, they're pretty great.
The part where you're banging the pots is excellent.
that was really good too. Yeah, that stuff is great. Yeah. No, they're I like a lot of the stuff story wise and character wise so far. That stuff is really good.
The other issue, I know we're focusing on the negative, but it's just I have issues, right? Like I am really enjoying the game, but the deeper I've gotten into it, I do really dislike the way that the main character is written or not written. Because
that's just dude, that is just Atlas main character writing for the most part. I know.
I think I actually would have preferred him to just be mute like the other characters if they were going to do it this way. Again, because he's supposed to be ramping up to a leadership position.
Yeah.
And dude, I know you're not there yet. I'm not going to no spoilers, but there is some fucked up shit that happens in that second dungeon, my friend.
Okay.
And the fact that like the main character just has shit all to say about it, like as it's happening, it sucks. Like everybody else is commenting on it.
Like I said, it's just Persona writing where they have like Gallica does most of the main characters talking for the most part.
And I feel that that's a problem in this situation.
It always is. Yeah.
I always go back to Star Wars Episode 1 where it wasn't that I hated Jar Jar Binks. It was that he had more dialogue than Anakin than Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon combined.
Right.
And it's like, what? Why? Just scale back his part, up their parts, and it's a nice balance. Like it's just out of whack, and that's how I feel here with how little the main character is actually commenting on stuff.
Yeah, that's just how they write those, and I'm not the biggest fan of it either because it just kind of makes it's a self-insert character is what they go for. But it is
fine in those other games. I just think here
it's the same here. That is a self-insert character.
Well,
really
I know, but again, because they did take the time to make sure the character has a voice, and then also the stakes are higher here than they are in the Persona games.
I think you're not the only person I've heard complain about the main character voice acting thing, because most people are just like, I kind of just preferred it when they didn't voice it, because you kind of live the voice in your head. It makes it easier to self-insert into it. You know what I mean?
Either I could go two ways. Either don't have him voiced because it just makes it easier to to not expect him to say something,
right?
Or give me more opportunities as shit is going down to react to things. Either way would be fine.
I could see that. Yeah.
I'm actually having him focus as a mage because as a magic user. Usually I do not I like melee.
Yeah.
But just the way the character is designed and built, I'm like, he seems like he should be a caster.
So I haven't read like a full blown day-to-day guide on it, but I did happen to like see an article of like, here's like 10 things that I wish I would have known going into it or something like that. And one of them was, hey, focus on magic for your main character because he's always going to be in there and you're always going to need somebody that's doing magic because it's such a big part of the game and you might as well just make him your mage. Like just do that. And I was like, okay, so I'm like almost every time they're like, hey, what stats you wanted? I just dump into magic most of the time.
Yeah,
and
his
just let
magic
everything
stat is
go
so
around.
fucking high at this point.
Yep. Because I mean, right now almost the other 3 party members are like all physical based for the most part. So yeah, you might as well.
Yeah. But no, I am really enjoying the story still.
Oh yeah, I need to stress. I really still like the game. I'm just kind of playing it a lot slower than everybody else is, but I'm still liking that. I'm still kind of enjoying doing that to some degree.
Yeah. Is there anything else I had this week for it?
For metaphor?
Yeah, I think that's probably. That's probably got it.
That's probably got it, man. I mean, I don't got much else. Like I said, I'm liking it, but like at the same time, I there is every chance that I just at some point go, yeah, I'm done. But like, I could definitely see it happening. Like
I feel like that would be a shame. Like I feel that this game is really going some places.
It could be. It could be. It could be. And I'll have to wait and see. But at the same time, like I'm having the exact same reaction that I had to it with Persona 5 when it came out, where I was just like, yeah, I really like this, but I'm gonna not play it. And then I wait. And here's the other thing is like, well, what if I just wait a couple years for the Metaphor ReFantazio Deluxe Edition or whatever the fuck that they're probably inevitably going to put out with extra stuff and a new party member and an extra story to add on to and really explain everything. And I'm like, oh, I'll play that version and with a guide and do it all that way. So the way they do business kind of fucking makes me just go, well, what's the point? They're gonna fucking put another one out that I'll probably end up playing or want to play anyway. Yeah. So
I think what I've been saying since I finished, because I did play all the way through Persona 5 Vanilla because I had bought it and it was sitting on my shelf for a while, and I played it after you played Royal. Because you loved Royal so much, and then I just played that like a regular art. Like I didn't look at anything. I just played it, and the result of that was that I maxed out exactly 2 social links. Yep. One of which was a party member. So when you had that big moment at the end where like everybody that is your friend like gathers, it was one person like at that courtyard. It's like, oh, that felt really shitty. Yeah. But then when I played Persona 5 Royal, that was like my victory lap where then I got like the platinum for it. I did the guide. Yeah. And I feel that that's kind of what I'm going to do with these games going forward. Now, I'm playing P3 Reload with a guide because I just plan on playing that once. I'm going to do the same thing next year with Persona 4 Golden. So I'm going to start that, same thing. Like that'll be, throughout the year, like I'm doing with 3. But when Persona 6 comes out, same thing. I'm just going to play it how it is. There you go. And then when the upgrade version comes out, that's where I'll get the guide and see everything. And I have it saved on my PC or on my in my bookmarks the guide for this game, and I'm kind of debating whether I'm just because I think I just enjoy their games better with a list of things to do. Like, hey, totally today, fine. Today go do this thing. Okay, cool. It takes that like level of indecision out for me, so maybe that's the best way to do it. But I've already done a couple things on my own, but I'm sure they're fine. I had that when I went to the guide on Royal too, where I was just like, oh, I messed a couple things up, but I can just switch some things around in the guide and it'll be fine. I will say that unlike the Persona games that I've played so far, where I'm at in the game right now, I feel that I'm on top of stuff because like as I've been playing P3 Reloaded, right? Like there's still like I am 85 hours into that goddamn game, and there are still social links that I have not met yet.
Yeah,
and that's just bizarre to me. And a lot of it has to do with like meeting certain thresholds, right?
Right.
But that's the other thing, and I don't know how I feel about this with Metaphor. I think it's a good thing. I'm like I said, I'm 27 hours in, past the second dungeon, and I feel like I'm flying through the story. Like it feels like it's going at a ridiculously fast clip compared to I'm 85 hours into Persona 3, and I'm still kind of waiting around for the story to start. And I think maybe it just isn't going to. Like, I think this is just the game, and it's just a very bland story. It's like, just go through this tower and, like fight these bosses every full moon.
I have a lot of praise for Metaphor kind of getting rid of that whole thing, because I was kind of, it's at first waiting for like, okay, where's the infinite dungeon that I'm going to have to go through and do all that stuff? And then they're like, no, it's all these side dungeons now, and they're little bite-sized things. I was like, okay, I like that. That's cool. That's actually great. Yeah.
I will say and this was another thing, like a point against it originally. In the first dungeon, like, I'm trying to explore these pretty thoroughly. And I'm like, there are doors and chests that are locked that I can't open, and I don't know where the keys are, and I'm getting actively frustrated.
The first big one.
And I got through the whole dungeon. I'm like, so I just missed stuff. Like, that's bullshit. But then it's like, oh no, actually, because
it's related to this other thing. When I seen that, I was like, oh, thank God, because it was driving me nuts too. I got to the end of it, and I was like, well, I'm not gonna go back and try to do that. I have no idea where it is, and I explored everywhere. Like, I looked at everything, and then once that came up, I was like, okay, all right, then that all makes sense then. Good. Yeah. But yeah, it's a good game so far, and
it is.
Yeah.
I really appreciate just like the audacity of what it's saying and certain things. Like I had that moment, and I'm sure they want you to have this moment where Luis, the main antagonist, all but admits to this is a minor. Actually, it's not even spoilers. It's the first couple minutes of the game.
Yeah,
he does everything but say explicitly out loud to the general public, yo, I killed the king.
Yeah,
but I'm gonna be the new king, and he's still like one of the front runners for the crown. And I had that moment where I was like, how the fuck are people behind him?
Yeah.
And then it's just like that moment where it's like, oh no, yeah, this is actually way more believable now,
right?
Than it ever would have been, before.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's cool. I dig a lot of stuff that they're doing. It's just it's me fighting my own RPG mind goblins, I guess, when it comes to these kind of specifically the Atlas Team Zero game. Like it is their style of game that I have to fight myself to like get through them, because they're just like they stress me out. That's basically it.
I totally get it. Yeah. And I know I'm going to be continuing on this. Honestly, like I've put so much time into it already this week, and that's even with like last week, and I barely got to touch it because I had so much shit to edit.
Yeah.
Between the two episodes, and also like the regular episode was so long.
Right.
This one's going to be shorter, I'm pretty sure. So I should have more time this weekend to dump into it, and then, like I am planning on playing some stuff to bring for next week, so that it's not just nothing but Metaphor for the next few episodes. But at the same time, my goal is to actually finish this by our Game of the Year podcasts. We're doing those over the course of it's 3 sessions over 2 months, with the final list thing actually being as late in December as we can get away with to give us plenty of time to play shit. So that's my deadline for finishing this and some other stuff.
Me too. I'm gonna try my best to, and if I fall off, I fall off, and that's just kind of gonna be my experience with it. But like I'm not done with it yet. I keep checking into it, but most of the time I get to it. I think that's the other thing is I feel like it has such natural stopping points sometimes with the day system where I'm like, okay, I can stop now and just kind of come back another time and pick up right where I left off or whatever, and it's fine.
Yeah. And even if you're in a dungeon, like there's enough save points within that you can like do those a bit at a time. So like last night, I went to go see a movie, which I'll talk about later, and I got home kind of late. Yeah. And by the time I ate dinner and everything, I was like, I've got about an hour. And I had just started a side dungeon. And I was like, let me play this and see how far I can get. And I got basically to like a mini boss inside of the dungeon before I was like too tired to continue. Yeah. I was like, but no, that's some good progress. Like I've mapped a good chunk of this first floor. Right. I've fought this boss. I've gotten this key. Good place to put it down for the night.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure.
Yeah.
Metaphor ReFantazio is pretty good. It's just, it's me. It's not me. It's not them. It's me.
Yeah. I get it.
Yeah. I remembered something now that I forgot to mention before the metaphor stuff. I finished Star Trek Resurgence on stream. Yes.
My friend Lissy told me that. So I can resume watching your streams now.
Yeah, you're good to go now. It was good. It was good overall. Yeah, it was. It's not the best game ever or anything. It definitely has some bugs. But overall, I enjoyed myself playing it. It definitely did a lot of telltale ass shit, which for mostly good though. It did the thing that I like at the end of like a telltale thing where you get to the end and you're like, I feel like this could have gone differently had I played a different hand here.
Right.
And that accounts for a lot.
Does it give you the this percentage of players did this?
It did not do that, which I thought was fine. My favorite thing that they did for the conclusion, not to spoil what happens, but like the best bit that they used to like kind of show how everything pans out in the end was they do the Star Trek monologue at the end. What like the captain's monologue thing, and I'm like, oh, that's perfect. That's a perfect way to do this shit. Like it was actually really cool.
Yeah.
I pissed a couple crew members off. It was kind of great.
You can't please the entire.
Oh, the one girl was furious with me. It was great. It was fun. I liked it. Man, I won't spoil too much. Because you intend to play it.
Yes.
But yeah, I definitely had some moments where I was like, I am murdering everybody. That's just how this is gonna go down. It was fun. So good game overall. If you like Star Trek, or if you're like me and don't know much about it, it's still fun.
Did it make you more interested in Star Trek? Now I know you're not gonna sit down and watch any TV shows or anything. But.
No, that's funny story. This was a while back, but I had gotten done with one of the streams. I want to say it was like the second or third one I did, and I was bored. It was Sunday, and I didn't have really much to do, and I was like, man, I should look into what I would have to do to watch like the Next Generation, because that's the one I want to watch.
Yeah, no, I still maintain that's the one to watch if you're going to watch one.
Absolutely. And I watched it as a kid, but like it was like in bits and pieces because my dad would watch it, and I don't even think he was paying attention to it half the time. It was just kind of on before fucking Renegade came on or whatever. So that's what it was. But yeah. I know he liked it to some degree because my dad is weird and kind of in a different time, he probably would have been a sci-fi nerd, but like it was uncool to do in his day and age, I guess. But
it sounds like if only he would have been a sci-fi nerd, things would have unfolded
It could have.
differently.
But then again, you never know.
Yeah. And then again, you never know. As we have learned, there's
never
a lot
know.
of people who watch that shit and did not get the message.
Yeah. But yeah, like so I'm not unfamiliar with it, but I definitely, I wasn't really paying attention to it as a kid. But now, like I've, from everything I've heard about it, I've always been kind of interested. So I did look into like how to watch it, and I was like, oh, I'd have to get like Paramount, and I'm like, I'm not doing that. That's too much.
No, I get it. Like,
yeah,
I will say that if it ever comes in a like on a service that you happen to have access to or something like that, and you're curious, don't try to like watch it chronologically. Just look up like kind of a top 10 list of episodes and just watch some of those.
Right.
Because, so much of Star Trek is not, it doesn't hinge on what you've seen before. It's all episodic, so it's fine.
Yeah.
Because I maintain that the first two seasons there's more bad than good in those first two seasons, and the characters they're not developed to where they end up at all. Like, they're very weird in those, especially the first season.
This one made me curious. I want to look up at least the episode that this game references, because it references, I think, a Next Generation episode. I'm not 100% sure on that, but something with the Talkin Empire and a guy named Portal 6-2 or something like that. I can't remember what his name is now. He was Portal. His name was Portal. Portal number. It was an older dude, and he was cool as shit. And I kept siding with him, much to the chagrin of everyone around me. I was like, but this guy's cool. Fuck you. But yeah, like I want to see that episode, because they kept referencing it, and it was clearly like they introduced like a Star Trek Next Generation character, like cameo happens.
Oh, nice.
And like he basically is like, yeah, no, this is what I did when I interacted with this guy, and I was like, oh, okay, cool, all right. That I would like to see like what that was, that episode at least.
Did they get the actor? Do you know?
Oh yeah, I think so. I'd have to look. I'd have to look if he did the voice acting, but it's definitely their likeness, 100%.
Sure, yeah.
And I'm pretty sure they're still alive, so I wouldn't see why they wouldn't have done.
I mean,
that.
all of the Next Generation cast is still around.
Yeah.
As far as the main cast, anyway.
I would
be surprised if they didn't do it, because they seem to be game for reprising their roles whenever.
Yeah, I'm trying to, let's see if I can find if it was actually them. I'm pretty sure it was, but doesn't. I don't know if you want me to spoil who it was or not. But
no, keep it to yourself. But
yeah,
but I'm just curious if they got the actual person. I will say, because I think it was, I forget if it was on your stream, like on the early stream, or if it was when you were talking on the show, but unless they're introduced in like the shows that I have not watched, I don't believe that the two main alien races that you were dealing with in that game are in the series before. I think they made those for the game.
They seemed new.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, it's totally him.
Cool.
It's totally that guy. Cool. Yeah. Which I thought it was. It's kind of like kind of the classic thing of like, they don't quite know how to do video game voice acting, but they're doing a good enough job. Yeah. It's totally fine.
And, like a good number of the TNG cast has done a lot of voice acting at this point. So, like Jonathan Frakes was on Gargoyle. Well, actually, most of the cast was on Gargoyles. What am I talking about?
Right.
And obviously, like Patrick Stewart was on like American Dad for like a lot of that, and obviously has done like video game work. He's reprised his role as Professor X in a lot of games.
Oh yeah,
and obviously he's in Oblivion, even though it's a small part. But he is.
Yeah, he only had to do the opening.
Yeah.
There's Portal 6-3. I couldn't remember that guy's name to save my life, but yeah, that was That was the Talkin guy. He was holding the whole empire down, Julian. He was the last remnant of it, and it was cool. Like I was like, this is interesting. I like what's going on here.
Nice.
Yeah. So good game overall. I have to say, definitely buggy. Crashed on me a couple times. Gets framey in spots. Had weird phaser behavior sometimes. It's not super perfect. Like a lot of the mini games are kind of like, I don't actually know how to do this, but whatever. The stealth is kind of not.
I saw when you
not
did the
super
stealth.
great. Yeah, not my favorite part of the game. It came back up like towards the end too, and I was like, oh, here we go. But it wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. There was definitely one part where I was like, I'm just going to kind of luck my way through this. And I did. But it was, I think it introduced this part where it's like, okay, you can interact with these consoles to distract the guards. And at some point I just went, but what if I just didn't? And that's what got me through it. I was like, all right, yeah, I guess I didn't need to do that. That was screwing me up. So yeah, not the best, but still a cool game for what it is, you know?
Yeah.
What?
Justin, I think the nacho fries that I had earlier are they're coming back to bite me.
You shouldn't be eating those. Those are bad.
No, man, they're awesome. I love them.
Are they?
Yeah. I'll be right back though. I gotta go to the bathroom.
Okay, I'll be here. Go for it.
Nacho fries. Let's check Twitter. When does Wario 64 sleep? Man, okay. No, that's bullshit. That's bullshit. Yeah, it's pretty funny. Cool. Oh, Hideo Kojima doing Kojima things. That's so Kojima.
How dare you?
The fuck?
I smell you. I feel you in my heart. How dare you?
The fuck is that? Abramo? What are you doing, dude?
He can't save you. Nothing can save you.
All right, this really isn't funny. I know it's Halloween time and all. This isn't funny, guys. Ha 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 ha. Just trying to take a shit here.
Do you think me a joke?
Yes, actually, I think this is a very poorly timed joke. I'm conducting business in this stall.
When the time is near, I will return, and I will end you. Julian Titus.
What the fuck?
The State Select is made possible through the support and funding of viewers like you. Here are our wonderful patrons.
Hey, how's it going? You doing okay? Man, those nacho fries must be. I'm not gonna have those. That doesn't look like a pleasant experience to have after it.
Justin.
What?
Have you ever heard things in the bathroom when you've gone?
Like you know, people peeing next to you, or you know, I avoid public restrooms for the most part, but you know,
well, when you gotta go, you gotta go.
I mean, that's fair. I've been getting better at that, you know, the older I get, so I'm proud of myself. But you know,
no, yeah, I'm proud of you too.
Thank you.
No, have you ever heard like an unholy demonic rumbling like inside your skull?
No, never had that. No, not so far. But Abramo's been talking about something like that though, so you may need to talk to him about this.
Yeah.
Is
you know, let's thank some patrons. Justin.
Are you sure you're in the mood for that right now, or?
No, yeah, let's do that.
Okay, do that. Well, that's I guess we can do that. That sounds fine.
we appreciate all of our lovely patrons, but every week we like to thank the executive producer. No, you know what?
What?
I need a minute. Hold on. Morgan, hey, can you come over here, please, Morgan? Yes. Hello, Mr.
Hey,
Titus.
Morgan.
And hello, Mr. Ham.
How you doing?
I am doing well. What you needed me, sir? Yeah, Morgan. I just need a minute. Can you take the list and help Justin thank the patrons for me?
Yeah.
You want me to thank the patrons? Yeah, well, yes, I would be honored.
Yeah, I'd be honored to have you do it, Morgan.
Yes, well, would you like to start, Mr. Ham?
I would love to start. We thank our patrons every week, the good ones, the really good ones, and we do it like this. We start by reading the first name, and the first name here is Big Baker.
Xavier Krieger.
And we have Bookie.
And Stephen Lobo.
And we have Casey Curran.
Raymond Crumb.
I like how we're changing it up. This is good. David Portnov.
Philip Becker.
Dennis Robertson.
Matt Jorgensen.
And also there's Eric Peacock.
Joel Thoman.
And over here there's X-Rian.
Finally, there is Game Johnson. Is that a typical name for humans in this world, Mr.
It is now. It is now.
Interesting. I quite like that name.
It's a good name.
It's quite unique
name.
from what I have heard from the meat bags that I have encountered in this.
Oh, meat bag. Interesting. You would say it that way. That's fascinating to me. That's cool.
Yes.
I'm gonna steal that if that's okay.
Feel free, sir.
Yeah, I like it.
I have always liked you, Mr.
Well,
Ham.
thank you. I like you too.
Yes. When the cleansing occurs, you will be spared.
Oh well, that's fantastic. I'm glad to hear it. That's nothing disturbing about that at all. That's good.
Yes. Well, Mr. Titus, if that is all, may I please be excused? Yeah, yeah. Thanks, Morgan. I feel better now.
Yeah, thank you, Morgan. That was fantastic. You come by and do more things. Read more names with me. It was fun.
Yes. Well, if Mr. Titus wills it,
Oh, right, the death that happens.
Yeah. No, it's okay. Abramo's on it now. Like he kind of just sweeps Morgan out of the way now when it happens. So
yeah,
kind of there's like a little bin now that
he's got a nice push broom. We got him for this entire exact reason.
Yes. So I feel that for the most part things are running pretty smoothly. We haven't had a phantom sighting in a while.
We've started covering Morgan in wax sheets, so that way he's easier to roll around or move around on the floor, and that seems to work well.
Abramo seems to enjoy that part.
Yeah, I mean, it's a fun game for him.
Yeah.
He might be Canadian. It's hard to say. So he might be playing hockey with his corpse, and I don't, I don't judge him for that.
At this point, I'm too afraid to ask.
Yeah, exactly.
And it has no bearing on his job performance. So.
No, he's doing great.
Yeah. You never know when there's a secret Canadian among us.
Never know. Who can say?
Well, speaking of our patrons, I did want to take a quick moment. Dennis Robertson had said something very sweet on. Like in the Discord in regards to my little Legacy of Kain monologue last episode. And he suggested that I look into like doing like audiobooks or something like that, because he said I have a very good voice, which was very sweet.
You do.
Well,
I've told you this before.
Here's the thing. And what I'm about to say, like this is not like, people hate the sound of their own voice, like when they hear it in recordings or whatever.
Yeah.
I have been editing my voice on podcasts
you get used
for
to
a
it.
long time. I am totally fine hearing my voice. Like it is not a problem.
Right.
Doesn't bother me a lick anymore.
Right.
That being said, And the other thing is that, like, you know, like, I would never deign to call myself an audio engineer, but over the course of doing all these podcasts, especially this show this year, like, I've definitely leaned more into, like, I'm very aware of audio, like, way more than I used to be, right?
Okay.
When I'm watching, like, a YouTube video, like, I notice people's voices probably more than, like, your average person watching a YouTube video does.
Right.
I can tell when an edit happens. Right? Like, you know, that
Me
type
too.
of stuff.
Yep.
I'm sure you hear it.
Yep.
You know, things like that. And I listen to a lot of podcasts and this and that. I do not feel that I have a good voice. Just objectively.
Okay.
I stutter a lot. I have a lisp. It is not what I would call an overall, like, pleasing voice. The joke that I made on my very first Pixel Bit podcast, not the first episode I hosted, but the first episode that I guested on, was I have a face made for radio and a voice made for print.
There you go.
It's a very old joke, but it still lands.
Right.
Because his thing was like, well, you know, we've been following you all these years, like it's got to be something, and I say thank you, but my thing is, you're here for Justin. I know, it's fine.
No, I highly doubt that.
No.
I highly doubt that.
I do not. But the other, so because what I bring to the table is that I know a lot about video games because I've retained a lot about video games, and I think I have a lot of interesting things to say about video games because, one, I think my opinions tend to just naturally skew in different directions than most people, but also I've been around video games for a very long time and yet somehow still love them and I'm not jaded about it. Like, I think that, like, well, at least it's my hope that people can hear, like, my enthusiasm and my love for video games when I'm talking about them, and it's kind of infectious. And so that's what I bring to the table. But as far as, like, a good radio voice, that ain't it. Like, I don't have that.
I think it's better than you think it is.
I really,
I don't
again,
think I would counterpoint you with this. I don't think I would have ever listened to Nerds Without Pants if I didn't think you had a good voice, Julian. So remember that.
I appreciate it. I mean, you know, I like to think that it was more the content than, you know, the delivery, right?
Oh, you're fine. We all have our quirks when we talk. That's why I have trouble listening back to things, is because I do a lot of the same things you do. Everybody does to some degree. When you listen back to it, you become very self-aware of it. Yeah. But I think if you had a script in front of you and you were doing your thing, I think you'd be great at it.
Yeah, I mean,
I genuinely think that.
I mean, obviously, right? Like with it, like I've always been a ham, and if that wasn't apparent with this show, I don't know what is. You know, Justin pitched a variety show when we ended Nerds Without Pants, and like a twinkle lit up in my eye, and I was like,
hell yeah.
Oh, a reality show, you say, with characters and things,
right?
And you know, like I think it's pretty clear that I get a kick out of doing that. I don't think I do it well. And like, I think one thing is that like, I'm not good at coming up with like my own voices. I think I'm pretty decent at doing impressions. Like, it was funny. I've been editing the Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth spoiler cast.
Yeah.
And there's a part where I do I didn't even mean to do it, but I did one of Nanba's lines, and I did it with a kind of a pseudo impersonation of Nanba. And I was listening back and I was like, that's a pretty damn good Nanba. I wasn't even trying.
Here's the secret to doing voices, Julian, is just do an impression and don't tell anybody it's an impression.
I mean, that is a trick, right? Like, you know, I was actually workshopping something on the way home from my doctor's appointment today, where I was like, oh yeah, what if I took that voice and then just did this with it?
Yep.
Because there's ideas that I definitely have on the horizon. There's people that we have not met yet, and there's people that still have yet to be hired.
That's true. We have a lot of open positions.
We do have a lot of open positions that will have to be filled at some point. Maybe not until next year. Got to look at how the budget is, but
yep.
You know, but you know, all that to say, thank you for Dennis. It was actually very sweet. It's a thing where, and I think that's the other thing is that, like, you know, I do follow people that do like audiobooks and stuff like for a living, and it's like, I would feel really shitty if like somehow I landed one of those gigs when somebody who's actually like looking for it, was getting it. Now, if like Rob Tone, like friend of mine who, is now a accomplished writer, if he came to me and said, "Hey, I want you to like do this audiobook for me," like I'd be like, "Yeah, sure." Like, I don't know why you're coming to me, but I'll work cheap, so maybe that's why, and that's fine.
Right.
But I don't, I think there's way better options on the table.
Hey, you never know until you try, though.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, Julian, if the opportunity arises, go for it.
Yeah, I've definitely said no to more things than yes in my life, and I'm trying to, fix that. But
that's good.
Yeah. Did you have anything else this week?
Did I have anything else? I've
got a couple non-gaming things, but that's about it.
Yeah, I don't think I do, Julian. I don't think I do. If I do, I don't remember them. So that's great.
Excellent.
Yep.
I'm sure they were
wildly important. Probably not. I don't think they were.
Yeah. Well, I will say, the last couple weeks, I have gone to the movies to see a couple new horror movies because
nice.
'Tis the season, and also I really like the fact that like now, if a movie's coming out on a Friday, you can bet your sweet bottom that there's probably a Thursday night showing somewhere.
Yeah.
It used to be the midnight shows, but theaters they don't want to do midnight shows anymore. So now it's just like, fuck it. It's going to start. We have an 8:00 show.
I don't blame them for not doing the midnight thing. God, that used to be chaos. There was a certain appeal to it at a time, but man, I don't think I'd want to go to one of those for anything anymore.
I miss a midnight show, but I do understand. Like I see from like the theater standpoint why you wouldn't want to do that, and I'm sure it sucked for the employees.
Oh my god, yeah, you're there till whatever time in the morning dealing with fucking assholes. Basically, the whole place is packed for Oh my god, yeah, I would not want to do that.
Yeah, but I do miss it, and I like if there was a midnight showing of like the next Avengers movie, like but now it's like I've bet. It used to be easy for me because I wasn't working like 9 to 5 hours, but then also like, it would fuck up the podcast. So I would have to actually be off, the following day just to like I can still do it. Well, actually, maybe I usually go to bed around 2. So
yeah,
it's probably not that big of a deal, honestly.
Okay. Before you get into what movies you've seen, okay, I have a funner. What's the most memorable midnight showing that you went to?
Oh, that's a good question.
Yeah.
It's not gonna be what you're thinking it is.
Okay.
I went with a couple of the game fellas to the original Alamo Draft House back when I think there was only like a couple of them. So this is the original downtown Draft House in the original location that used to be a firehouse.
Okay.
To see the 1986 Transformers movie.
Hell yeah.
And it was just like the three of us and like, I think 2 other like college kids or something like that.
Nice.
And I could tell instantly that they were there to just kind of make fun of the movie.
Right.
They shut the fuck up when Optimus Prime died, though. I'll tell you what.
Hell yeah.
They were not expecting that shit.
Right.
And like they were real quiet after that.
Oh my god, man. The 86 Transformers movie goes so fucking hard on just so much. Like I remember being a kid and them like one of the opening scenes of the movies is just like, hey, we're just gonna kill off a lot of Autobots just right off the bat. I remember being like, holy shit, this is cool.
Man, like that close-up of Prowl with like the smoke coming out of his mouth and his eyes turning orange, like that gave me nightmares that night.
Oh, I believe it. Yeah, it's haunting.
My mom took me to like an evening show, and I know for a fact that it was after my bedtime, but I guess that was the only time that she could like find like a showing because that movie didn't do well, and I want to say that like it was at the Dollar Theater like almost instantly.
Oh, probably.
That's where we went to see it. But I
believe it.
That movie left scars that have never healed.
For some reason, it had the opposite effect on me. I was like, this is the coolest shit. Like, I was like, this is awesome.
To this day, I still think it's one of the best hand-drawn animated like movies.
Oh, it's great.
It's a gorgeous movie. Like the animation is incredible. Like the art, the Transformers have never looked better.
Yep, I agree.
Before or since.
Yep, I agree. Especially when you go back and like watch the show, like after you've seen it, like it really stands out because some of the animation on that like old show was like not super great. Like
No,
it really
it's not.
wasn't. It was fine for the time because we were kids when we watched it, but yeah. My most memorable midnight show, I can count on one hand how many I've actually been to. I'm pretty sure it's been 3.
Oh wow, man! I've been to a shit ton.
I know, I believe you. The first one I think I ever went to was The Matrix Reloaded.
Nice.
And I had I had just watched the original Matrix for the first time that day. Got incredibly stoned. Out of my mind stoned on the way to there. Was incredibly paranoid in the line waiting for the thing. And then went and watched the movie and was like, that was all right.
Wait. When you got to the scene with the maker at the end, did that not just like fuck you up, or were you like kind of sobering up by that point?
You were pretty sober by that time.
Okay.
Like, yeah, it wasn't. Yeah, it didn't last that long. Usually by the middle of the movie, if you went there high, you were like, all right, okay, this. You start to like see the movie for what it is sometimes, and that's not always the best part. The other one is I went with my sister to watch, which one was it? It is the 3rd Twilight movie, I believe.
Oh God.
Yeah. That was terrible. That was a horrible experience. That's the one where, she gets vampire pregnant and it's a whole fucking thing. It is that. You talk about disturbing fucking moments for me personally. That is, that did all sorts of shit to me that I didn't, and it was on top of that, it was a terrible movie.
That was when Justin Ham became asexual. He was like, I want no part of this.
No, I was already there pretty much, but I didn't know, and I was just sitting there watching it, going like, oh God, this is not okay. But anyway, and then the last one that I went to was Sin City 2. That was a midnight showing.
I've only seen that one once. I own
That's
it,
all
and
you
I
need.
haven't watched it.
That's all you need.
I
Just
remember
once.
enjoying it. I mean, I definitely didn't like it as much as the first one.
No,
but
yeah. It's I don't know. I remember watching it and being like, I wish I would have just came at a normal time, and I shouldn't have. I should have not made this an event like I did. I was like, I'm gonna go to the midnight showing. I can't wait. And I was like, this is not that good.
Look, I know this doesn't. It means nothing for you, but Ava Green boobs will go a long way towards me enjoying a movie.
That's fair. That's fair. Yeah. She was the one girl in that movie. I read that comic, and they did a good job, I guess, doing that one. But
I wish that Robert Rodriguez had continued and gotten them all filmed.
I feel
that was the
they
plan.
Got most of them.
Is that most of them between the 2 movies?
I think so, because there's like seven books altogether, something like that. So Dame to Kill For was the second one, and that's the one they skip over in the original one. Mm-hmm. There was the first 2 were in there, or first one was in there, then the second and third and fourth one were in there as well. And then I keep thinking there was one more. They showed a lot of the short. There's one book that's just short stories, and I think they did a lot of those in 2. And I can't remember how I'd have to go back and read them. It might be a lot less than I think, but I think they got most of them. Because at the end of 2, they completely add their own ending. Like none of that shit's in the comics. None of that stuff is in there. Like they kind of just start freestyling, and I was like, I don't know about this. Like that was the part that it really got me. I was like, what the fuck are they doing right now? And I'm sure they got some sort of blessing to do it, but I was just like, yeah, not a big fan of this. But whatever.
You ever done an all-nighter at a movie theater?
No, I don't think if we had anything like that around here, I never went to it. So
yeah, that was kind of a draft house thing. And I don't even know if they do those anymore, but I went to a few of those. One of my favorite ones. I think I've told you, or I don't know if I told you specifically, but I definitely talked about it on Nerds Without Pants back in the day. But it was the, was it at that point? It would have been the 10-year anniversary of Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Okay.
So it was called the Midnight to Dawn anniversary event.
Nice.
And so it was an episode from each season of the show, starting like right before midnight.
Okay.
And then ended with the sing-along, the musical episode, Once More with Feeling. So it was, but like there were like a lot of technical difficulties and stuff like that. So it was supposed to end, I think, around like 7 or 8 in the morning, but it didn't end until like 11.
Oh, wow.
And so it was like, we're all fucking exhausted, but like we're belting out Once More with Feeling, like at like, 10:30 in the morning after being up all night. And, but it was a good time. Went with a lot of people for that one, actually.
Yeah, I believe it.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah. I miss those days. I miss when the draft house felt
unique to your area
and not corporatized. Like,
right.
I feel that
special. Yeah.
And I think at a certain point they decided to just be a movie theater, and that's not what it was. Right. Like, it used to be, and I don't think they even do this anymore. Well, one thing was like no kids allowed.
Yeah.
Just straight up. And then the other thing was you talk, you text, we throw you out.
Right.
And I don't think they do that anymore either. So,
yeah.
Yeah.
It sounds like it used to be, at least when you went there in the good old days, it was like more like almost indie rock type thing.
Very much.
Instead of what it now became, it's like your favorite punk band sold out is kind of what it sounds like.
That.
Yeah.
Like you would go to see like some weird show, and then the pre-show, like without it wouldn't be movie trailers. It would be just like random weird shit that would be somehow related to the thing you were going to watch.
Nice. That's cool.
And they would run that for like about half an hour before the movie. You didn't know what you were going to see. And yeah, like it was that type of vibe.
Yeah, I'm always intrigued by people's dollar theater stories, because that's a bigger city thing only. We didn't have that around here.
Oh.
Yeah, like in where I grew up, we did not have like a dollar theater where like all the films that you didn't really quite make it or whatever, or were older now would go to. So like you could kind of wait. That like when I moved to Utah for the couple years that I was there, I discovered that was a thing, and then we would go watch bad movies there, and that was great. Like I watched what was that fucking movie? It was a complete box office bomb. It's just a guy's name. It's a Disney movie. They spent an insane amount of money on it. John Carter or some shit like that. Yeah.
Dude, you wound me to the quick, because
I'm sorry.
That's based off of the Edgar Rice Burroughs Mars books.
Yeah.
And so I was super invested in that movie being good, and it was dog shit, and I was so upset.
It was quite bad.
Yeah.
It was quite bad. But yeah, we went and seen that in the Dollar Theater, and I remember just kind of laughing at it. And yeah, they intended that to be a whole thing.
Yeah.
Like that was going to be kind of their, I almost felt like their answer to Avatar, but it was never going to be that.
Well, first of all, Disney was already the wrong place to do it, because like like if you've ever looked at any art from the Mars series, it's like John Carter's wearing a loincloth.
Right.
Deja Thoris is also just wearing a loincloth, now that I think about it, and a headdress. Right. Like, they're particularly violent for when they were written, and like everybody's basically naked. I think actually in the book, John Carter is naked for a good chunk of the first part of it when he gets to Mars. It's also like trippy as shit, because like the way that he gets there, he basically astral projects. Like he is wounded during the Civil War.
Yeah, yes.
Yeah, and he goes into a cave, and he basically thinks he's going to die, and I think he stumbles out of the cave, and he kind of looks towards the stars, and then just basically leaves his body, and then wakes up on Mars.
Why not?
Which is really cool. Like, I think that's awesome, but like, you're not going to do that now.
Yeah,
Like,
it's not gonna work out.
Yeah.
But that was a weird one. But yeah, the dollar theater always intrigued me, especially. And then when I went to, I remember somebody explaining the concept to me when I lived there, and they were like, "Yeah, you just go. We'll just wait till it goes to the dollar theater." I'm like, "What the fuck are you talking about? Like that, we don't. No, we didn't have that. That's so that always intrigued me when I hear people talk about that.
It wasn't necessarily the flops. It was just like the movies that had like
It was
over, like they
the older things
finished their run.
they'd finished their run. You know, like it was like almost like, okay, we have to make room for the stuff that is coming out now, so we will send these here. So like if you kind of missed it on its initial run, or you wanted to watch it again or something, that was the perfect place to go do it. And the one there was just like, it was clearly a new theater at some point, but then it got old, and then they built 2 other ones, and they were just like, well, it's still here. We'll just show these ones for, $1 or whatever. So
we actually have I don't know if it's still operating, but like in the few years right before the pandemic, we had gotten a new dollar theater. I don't know if it was $1 actually. I think it was more like $2 or whatever.
Yeah, but
it was still the same setup of like, these are movies that like sometimes they'd be available on home video, but it was like, but if you still want a theatrical experience, right? Like you can still get it. Cause I think that's really what happened. I was trying to think of like why they're gone. It's like, well, it's because like there used to be a time when movies would take like 6 months to a year,
while to come out to video. Yeah, now it's like almost as soon as they're out of theaters, they're out on streaming.
Sometimes
or whatever.
Still in theaters, and
right.
Like there's been a bunch of high profile movies this year that like were only in the theaters for like a week or two.
Yep,
and then they went to streaming because they didn't do what the theater
exactly. Yeah, the studios didn't get their money back, so they're gonna make it back this way. They're like, well, people just don't want to go to a theater to see it, so just put it on this, and we'll hopefully we'll get something out of it. Yeah. Anyway, what did you see, Julian? Talk about movies that you saw.
Well, that old type of theater experience I was actually trying to get when I went to go see Terrifier 3 last week.
Okay.
Because the Terrifier movies are very much like an old school type of horror movie. Like it's all practical effects. Like they're very schlocky. They're very puerile. They're very, they are there to just be as violent and gross as they can be.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a Texas owned theater chain that I have never heard of until I found this one kind of close to where I live.
Okay.
There and the first time that I went to the theater, it was like they didn't have the recliners. It was like, and you didn't like pick your seat ahead of time. It was just go pay for your ticket and go sit down. And I was like, I kind of miss this.
Yeah.
And thinking about Terrifier 3, I was like, that's perfect. I'm going to go like basically opening night, and I'm just going to like buy my ticket and sit wherever I sit. If it's packed and I have to sit in the front row, so be it.
Yeah.
But I'm just going to sit in an uncomfortable seat and watch this really schlocky horror movie.
Right.
I got there and it ended up that they had remodeled and they have the recliners. And
okay.
You can order food to your chair now, and it's like, that's really not the experience that I wanted.
Yeah.
I like the draft house experience, don't get me wrong.
No, I get it.
But sometimes you don't want waiters, scuttling back and forth when you're watching a movie.
Yeah, I get it.
And if you're not aware of the Terrifier series, the first movie was just about a fucked up serial killer dude that dresses like a clown. He's mute, and he just kills a bunch of people.
Great.
Second movie takes things in a supernatural direction.
Okay.
And it is goriest, grossest thing I've ever seen.
Right.
To the point of like, there's really infamous scene where it's like, how is this person still alive? And how is this killing still going on? It's kind of an intense watch.
Okay.
But at the same time, like Art the Clown, and I think I mentioned this to you, I think it would have been last year, because like that's when I watched the second one. But Art the Clown as a movie monster is like one of the best movie monsters I've seen. And it's been a long time since we've had like a new member of like the movie monster pantheon. And this is one of those things, a lot like Freddy Krueger, where it is 100% the actor playing the role.
Right.
Like once this guy's done, you can't bring Art the Clown back. Because it is 100% this guy's performance. He is incredible.
Right.
As this mute mass murderer. And the third movie is really cements that even more, because at this point, he's almost like a super fucked up Looney Tunes character.
Okay.
Like he's very cartoony, but still incredibly terrifying and menacing. And he does have one goal in the third movie.
Okay.
Which is to kill the two people that survived the second movie.
All right.
Like basically the people who defeated him.
So kind of like a Michael Myers situation.
A little bit.
Yeah.
But the thing is that outside of that goal, he's kind of just like a natural disaster.
Okay.
And so if you run afoul of him, you're dead. But he doesn't target people. It's just that, like, basically, it's almost like if you make eye contact, you're fucked.
Yeah.
Or if something like catches his eye, right? So like, there's a hilarious part in Terrifier 3 where he's walking by a bar. This takes place around Christmas, and there's an off-duty mall Santa at the bar.
Okay.
And Art gets so fucking excited. He looks in the window, he sees Santa, and he runs in, and like he's clapping and everything, and he's like, doing like a motion like, oh my God, I can't believe it's you. And so the people at the bar are just thinking, oh, it's this really weird, eccentric guy who wants to sit on Santa's lap.
Right.
You as the audience know, no, he wants to fucking kill Santa so he can get his costume. Like that's what he's excited about. But it's a thing like that, right? Like if he had not seen the Santa costume, those guys would have been fine.
Right.
But because he saw the Santa costume, now Hurricane Art strikes and they're all murderized. Right?
Got it.
And again, like I said, it's all practical effects, and it definitely fleshes out more of like what Art is by Terrifier 2. Because like I said, he starts out as just a guy, but now he is not that. And so it fleshes out the lore in a way that I really enjoyed. It also, I give it props for doing some shit that I've never seen a horror movie do before, or really any movie, which is, it is not afraid to off some kids in some incredibly gruesome ways.
Interesting.
So if you're listening to this and you're a parent and like that's an issue for you, I would say you should not watch this movie.
Yeah, some people have that. Yeah, for sure.
Because we are talking about like dismembering children.
Okay.
And like you don't see the actual thing happen, but you definitely see the results.
Right.
And I was like, bravo, Terrifier 3.
Yeah.
Like, you got some guts.
They're
Holy
going
shit.
there. Yeah.
Yeah. And there's not much to say other than like, it was gory. It was gross. It was funny. It's got a great like holiday themed Terrifier theme song that's really good. You have not been the same until you have seen a guy take a chainsaw to his nether regions. That's a thing that happened.
Right.
I'm ready for Terraformer.
Sure. Why not?
Because they don't call it that. What are we even doing here?
Well,
like, seriously.
Yeah.
I was a little worried that a third one might have been a little too much. And I was like, no, I got another one in me at least. So.
Yeah. Well, that's good.
Yeah. And then last night, I saw Smile 2.
Okay.
Smile was actually, I thoroughly enjoyed Smile.
I remember you really liking it. Yeah.
Yeah. These are very much pandemic era horror movies.
Yes.
And that's such an interesting thing. It's a weird thing to think of. I mean, it makes sense, right? Like horror always, like the best horror movies always kind of are born from the fears of the time, right? Whatever that may be. And so it stands to reason that, this unprecedented pandemic would generate a shit ton of horror in various ways.
Right.
And I think Smile is one of the best ones about it. Smile 2 takes place immediately after the first movie, because if you aren't aware, like basically the gist of it is there is this entity that once it possesses someone, it basically drives them mad and causes them to like basically, it's not that it possesses the person themselves, it attaches to them. And then it fucks with their mind and makes them see other people that only they can see, but they're people that are just smiling unnaturally. and doing more and more stuff to drive this person insane, and basically feeds off of all of that negative energy. And then once it's had its fill, causes that person to horrifically kill themselves in front of an audience. And then the person who witnesses that act gets the entity attached to them, and it's a chain. It's almost like a really fucked up chain letter.
It's almost like The Happening, but better.
I didn't see The Happening, actually.
It's a terrible movie. You
That's
don't need to. It's fun. It's funny. It's hilarious to watch. Honestly, watch it as a comedy, and it's pretty great.
Yeah.
But no, you don't need to. But it's kind of like that premise. I'm like, oh, okay, it's kind of like that, but not really. It's a lot better. That sounds a lot better than what they tried.
Yeah. So yeah, like, literally, like, the last guy that you saw with it in the last movie is at the beginning of this movie, so it picks up immediately.
Right.
And this one centers on like a pop star who's kind of like on the verge of a comeback after like a life-threatening car accident that she was in the year before.
Okay.
That was also a result of her like going overboard with drugs and alcohol. So she's been sober, she's trying to get her life back together, she's starting a new tour. Like that whole thing. Very stressful situation, compounded by the fact that then she witnesses the end of someone who had the entity, and so now it's her turn to have this happen to her. These movies are super effective on me because I actually find unnatural smiles incredibly off-putting.
Oh yeah, it's very unnerving, yes.
I hate it. I cannot stand to look at Mr. Beast.
Yeah, no, I get it. Yep.
I've always said that like my ability to suss out assholes is like pretty strong, and I have all my alarms ring so strong whenever he pops up, and it's starting to become a little bit justified. It's starting to become it's still kind of hearsay and rumor. But I'm like, no, where there's smoke there's fire, and I haven't been wrong yet, so just waiting. But regardless, even if he's like the nicest dude in the world, that dude's smile is fucking terrifying to me. It's
not great. No, yeah, I get it.
So even as something as silly, because you think about like, it's just people smiling, like who gives a shit? It's like, no, these smiles are not okay.
Yeah.
So I don't like fake smiles. I don't like stuff with mirrors. And this movie in particular does a shit ton of stuff with mirrors in some very fucked up ways. And it's funny because like I was a scaredy cat originally until I played Resident Evil, and that's where I got my taste for horror.
Okay.
And so then I started to like watch horror movies, and over the years I've pretty well desensitized myself. It takes a lot to get under my skin these days. And typically what'll happen is it's not as I'm watching the media or experiencing the media that works. It's after the fact. And that was definitely true with the first smile, where I was like, that was creepy.
Yeah.
And then I went home and I was like, oh, I can't sleep. And then I kept thinking about that movie for a few days.
Right.
And, so I watched Smile 2. It was like an 8:00 show, got out at like 10:30, drove home, had dinner, played a little Metaphor, got ready for bed. And I had turned out, got ready for bed. I turned out my bedroom light, and I was like, oh, I don't like how dark it is in here. And then I was like, okay, yeah, this, it did the thing. And sure enough, I had trouble getting to sleep last night. It's been in my head ever since. It's a really good sequel. I think this one, more than the first one, falls back on jump scares way too much, and it doesn't need to.
Yeah.
It's plenty scary on its own without that. And so it kind of cheapens the movie.
Yeah.
The other issue, it's fine for a sequel, but if they want to do a third one, they're definitely going to have to shake things up, because by nature of what the entity does, it's very much a formula. And so now that I've seen it twice, if they try to do this exact thing again, it's not going to land, because it's like, okay, I know exactly what is real and what's not real here, as far as like what the person is seeing,
right?
That type of thing. And also both movies kind of pull a CG thing, like at the climax, where I wish that they would go with like a practical thing for
Okay.
that, especially
Yeah.
coming off of, like I said, the Terrifier movies. But one thing I didn't mention is I watched The Substance a few weeks ago with Demi Moore and Death Stranding's Margaret Qualley, aka Mama.
Okay, yeah.
She's in that movie. And that is all practical effects, and it is body horror, and it is disgusting, and like it's grotesque and over the top, and done so incredibly well. And like the things that they do to Demi Moore's body in that thing with like makeup and stuff like that is kind like, if it doesn't get at least nominated for best makeup, like I don't even know what people are like looking at. 'Cause holy shit, dude! Like it's incredible. But that's what I would have preferred for like these moments in the two Smile movies where you see the CG start to come out. It's like, oh, like that. It just looks very cheap and cartoony and, you know, kind of disappointing. But otherwise, like really great movie, great performances. I'm not familiar with the actress who plays the lead, but she was excellent.
Nice.
Definitely recommend. I will say, I meant to mention this when I talked about Transformers 1. You know how during lockdown and everything, we were not going to the movies.
Right.
And then people kind of stayed away from the movies for a good bit there. Like, now it's like certain blockbusters will definitely get people in the seats, but otherwise things kind of come and go. I remember distinctly there was like an ad campaign. It started with, I remember the first ad was Vin Diesel, because I think it was for Fast and the Furious 9, when that was coming to theaters, where he was like him, you know, inviting people back to the movie theater, saying, hey, look, like, there's nothing quite like watching something like Fast and the Furious on a big screen with people, blah, 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 you know, and it was a good message to have. It was like, yeah, you know, it feels like it's time to go back to the movies. Lately, they're pushing that shit like before the movie, when you're seated at the movie. And sometimes, depending on where the theater you go, there might be like 3 different variations of it. Like where it's like this big like trailer for the movie theater franchise talking about how awesome it is to watch movies at the theater, and it's like, I know, my dude, I'm sitting in your theater.
You're there. Yeah. It's kind of a weird place to do that, right? But I guess they can do that because you know they own the place, so
they absolutely can.
Yeah,
but
I'll agree with you, though. That's a weird place to do that. Yeah.
And so then you might have Nicole Kidman talking about how, you know, magical the movies are and how she loves to get like, you know, like wrapped up in a movie. And I'm thinking, you are an A-list, like long time Hollywood celebrity. The only time I think that you ever watch a movie is when you have been invited to a red carpet.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think that you are watching movies for pleasure at this point, because you've been in the industry so long. It's like you couldn't give 2 shits.
Right.
But there's so much of that. And like, and the other thing they do now is then they will have like the cast of the movie, like give you this message thanking you for being at the movie. And it's like, guys, I am getting so fucking sick of being told that I should come to the movie theater while I'm at the movie theater that I kind of don't want to go to the movie theater anymore.
Right. Right.
It's having the opposite effect. And Terrifier 2 was extra egregious. I mean, sorry, no. Smile 2 was extra egregious because, you know, so she's a pop star, right?
Yeah.
So they had a music video, oddly with a countdown timer to when the movie was going to start, which was super distracting for this music video.
Yeah.
And it's playing one of the songs from the movie that she sings.
Yeah.
But it's showing scenes from the movie that you're about to watch. And it's
That's a weird choice.
Yeah. And it's like watching the trailer for the movie before the movie that you're about to watch right then. And it's like, I don't want to remember what's in the trailer. I want to go in as fresh as possible.
What a weird time we live in.
It's so weird. Oh, and then
really
it also had her like personally thanking everybody for coming to the movie and blah,
okay,
blah, blah.
sure. I mean, sure, fine. Yeah, that's
it's one of those is fine.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's a lot.
And I know I sound kind of like the old man yelling at the clouds, but it's just like, I don't know what purpose it serves. Like, you're literally preaching to the choir.
Hey, you know, off topic of the thing you just talked about, the more you describe Smile 2, it kind of reminded me of something. Mm-hmm. Have you ever watched the anime Paranoia Agent?
No. I have heard of it.
Yes. you might get into that one. So I am kind of not like you in the sense of like after I watch a movie, I kind of forget a lot about it, and like horror movies and stuff like that, and horror media period doesn't really bother me after I watch it. It's usually as I'm doing it like that that I get like tense, but afterwards I don't really get bothered by it. Paranoia Agent was one of the exceptions. And it kind of actually boils down to something that's very similar to Smile, but they did it a long time ago in an anime form.
Yeah. Honestly, it wouldn't surprise me if that was an influence.
It would not.
This one.
It's definitely way different, but like there's one episode in particular that is creepy as shit, and it's like a bunch of like little short stories, and it's really great.
Cool.
If anybody out there has never seen that, definitely look into it. It's a Satoshi Kon thing. So
is that
Perfect
the
Blue
one
and
where it's got like the yellow smiley face as like the icon?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I believe the biggest thing about it is depending on what language you're watching it in, is either the Golden Bat or which is the Japanese version, or Little Slugger was the English translation of it. And it's just a kid with a baseball cap and rollerblades and a bat, bent bat, and he smiles a lot. And it's a whole fucking thing. Yeah. It kind of starts out like innocent enough, and then slowly just escalates and escalates and escalates. But it's all like, it's almost like episodic. Like you can kind of watch. You should watch it in order because it definitely everything ties in together. But like everything's
kind of monster of the week type thing.
It's all the same monster, but it all is kind of like their own story. And how they got into this, it's hard to explain without spoiling it, but it's really good. It's like I said, Satoshi Kon was like the guy who did like Perfect Blue and stuff like that. Really, really good anime writer or whatever he was. He was great.
Yeah.
But Paranoia Agent is one that people sleep on a lot, and it's great. It's one of my favorites.
Okay. I'll have to check that out.
So yeah,
I do. I need to see what's available on Hulu right now before I check out Crunchyroll, because there's a couple things. I want to re-up Netflix for a little bit because the new Ranma anime came out. I want to check that out. But also Dragon Ball Daima just started.
Oh
and
boy.
I need to see that. Like, everybody's kidified, and I don't know. I need to see Kid Vegeta kicking ass. Like that just sounds like a
pretty
fun time.
alright. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know what it's available on streaming wise. I have it on Blu-ray because it's one of those things that I just refuse to not own. Like
sure,
I mean
more. Like, it feels like it's a good, like, if there's something that you like, you should probably see if you can acquire a physical one.
Yeah, absolutely. I recently bought the Trigun series because it was like, I just found it on sale. There's only on DVD, but that's really all you need for that one because it was never like,
it
was an older one,
Yeah.
So I was like kind of happy to find that because that's one of my favorites too.
Yeah. I need to go ahead and rebuy Buffy on DVD because every effort to try to transfer it to HD has been abysmal.
Yeah.
So it's like I should just rebuy like those original box sets that I had before I can't find them anymore. Because that is a series that I will always want to watch and want to just be able to have access to.
I get it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely get it. But yeah, Paranoia Agent. I mean, it terrified my sister and I so much that we were afraid to walk down the hallway.
Wow.
So yeah, like it wasn't great. It was great, but yeah, it was kind of a fun moment in our lives. We both kind of remember that one fondly. Her, maybe not so much, but yeah.
Well, I had planned on doing a bit of a comic book check-in, but I may as well, since we're talking about anime, kick things off with, I've read a little bit more Berserk. I brought it to the waiting room at the doctor's office today.
Right on.
And I have a question, and maybe you can't answer this because you might not know the reference.
Okay.
But are the God Hand just Cenobites, but Japanese flavored?
Cenobites. What is that from?
The cosmic bondage creatures from Hellraiser?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't actually know.
Yeah.
Not because I don't know the reference. It's because I don't actually. So as far as I've ever gotten in the series, Julian, they come back, and then the anime ended.
Okay.
So I don't really know anything more than you do.
Okay.
Yeah. I know like the next arc pretty well, but like after that, I don't know where it goes. So.
Okay. Yeah, I basically just finished the arc with I don't think they ever gave him a name. Just the count at the one that was punishing the heretics.
Yes.
Yeah.
Definitely
seeing,
that
way more of the influence on Dark Souls now, for sure.
Yeah, that was not in the anime. That part they completely cut out. The one that I watched, the anime that I watched, it wasn't in there. They cut it out, and I kind of understand why they did, because the way they don't, the Bailet stuff, they basically introduced that like seriously way late in the anime, and it kind of comes out of nowhere, and it's kind of cool in a way, because it's almost like a twist, but then they don't keep going. It's so weird of a place to end that fucking thing. I know they wanted to make more, and it just never happened or something.
That's interesting that they cut that though, because so I know the name Griffith, right? And that's the first appearance of Griffith.
I believe they kind of shortened that bit. They kind of do it. They kind of just like added it to the end of. There's a little part in the middle of both of those arcs where he's like riding on a carriage or whatever, and he has like a dream, and I think they just tie the Griffith thing into that, like, and just kind of explain like, oh yeah, this is the guy he doesn't like, but you don't know anything about him, and you don't really know who these people are or anything of what's going on.
Yeah.
So yeah, but the manga definitely goes into a lot more of it.
Yeah.
I just got the next two books. I haven't cracked into them yet though. So
yeah. So I'm now, I think, like probably 2/3 of the way through the first volume. I do have the second one on the way, but it's coming with my PS5 disc drive, which
gotcha.
It's saying like anywhere between like the 28th of this month and like the 8th of November. I hope it comes earlier than that, because I would like it to come before the PS5 gets here.
Yeah, I won't lie. So I ordered the 2 and 3, and it took like kind of a way longer than it would normally take for them to get there. It was like 2 weeks for those to get there, and I don't know where they're coming from or anything, but yeah, like I wouldn't
be surprised if Versus Wolves is causing a run on these books being sold.
It's possible. Yeah. It's entirely possible. Yeah, I don't even really listen to that. I just was like, yeah, you know what? It's been 20 years in the making. I should start reading this fucking manga now, because they have the nice deluxe edition that I've been looking at forever.
They're very nice, and
they are nice.
The first few volumes have been on a deep discount, and that's probably what I'll do going forward, is just wait for them to go on sale.
Oh yeah,
they're pretty pricey at full price.
Yeah, they're like $50 full price if I remember correctly. And like, I've been,
and they've been around like 28 for
yeah. They've pretty good discount on it, honestly, so far. So that's I think even the third volume, I was like, yeah, that's not bad. I'll buy that. But yeah, I'm kind of right there with you. I've made a vow that I won't get. A lot of the times I'll just collect the whole thing, and then I'll get around to reading it when I get around to reading it. But this one, I'm like, no, I'm going to make sure I read the first one and then buy this next one and then buy the next one.
Yeah.
After I read that stuff. That's how I'm going with it.
I reserve the right to hop off at any time.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I'm enjoying it. Like let me make no bones about it. It's, I still, my feelings about Guts have not changed, but again, it's very early, and so I feel that like I don't know anything about
you're
him
kind of
yet, so
I especially with what I know of that character, you're definitely kind of supposed to not come around to him until after the arc that comes after all this shit. So,
okay, that's good. Yeah, because you know, there, like I said, there's one read of the character where it's just like, okay, yeah, like if you're 16, you're just like, oh man, Guts is so fucking cool.
Right.
But,
yes.
you know, it's like the Cloud
edgelord.
thing, right?
Yes,
like,
he's super edgelord. Yeah.
And not, but there's another read that I get on him, which is way more nuanced, where it's like, okay, he's purposefully being a dick to like distance everybody around him because he understands that anyone
he
who
knows
comes
a lot
close,
more. Yeah, he knows a lot more about what's actually going on with a lot of the stuff. Yeah.
Well, but also like, I mean, you know, there's a really early example of it where people try to do him a kindness, and he's like, "You really shouldn't be doing me a kindness." Yeah, and then they get get what happens to people that do him a kindness. So
if you've picked up that I mean, now you should have, that it's the mark on his neck that draws all that stuff in. So he knows that he's a problem.
Yes.
And he is actively trying to like, no, stay the fuck away from me.
Yeah. It is funny though, like, again, the Dark Souls inspiration.
Oh yeah.
Because it's like, okay, but he is not having any trouble with these monsters, where, you know, Dark Souls, you know, like the whole thing is like, oh, you're going to have a fight on your hands with even these like weak enemies. And Guts is just like, no, I'm just going to take out like 50 of these dudes in like 3 swings, you know, like not a problem.
The dudes, yes. But the actual demons, he does struggle. He does have those are a fight. Like he's generally getting his ass kicked a lot of the time and kind of, you know, just outfoxing them here and there.
Yeah.
So yeah, but I mean, yeah, you have it. The first time he does some stuff like that in the next arc is actually like a really big deal.
Cool.
So yeah.
Yeah. So I'll be continuing with that. I have also been continuing with my X-Men run, which the most recent volume that I've been reading is X-Men Inferno, so Justin, this is a thing where when it was being printed in the 80s, the covers terrified me as a kid, and right. I knew just seeing X-Men on the spinner rack at like B. Dalton booksellers that it was forbidden reading. Like I could just tell from looking at it, right? It looked demonic, and rightly so, because Inferno is dealing with demons invading from limbo.
Was it like Mephisto stuff, or
no? Actually, it's tied in with magic. And so I was actually glad that I had been reading all the New Mutant stuff, because I got to see, like, you know, her whole, you know, how she became magic, but then also like the slow corruption of her power in limbo. And at a certain point, I don't know if you're familiar with the character Warlock from New Mutants. He's a techno-organic alien.
I remember that name, but I couldn't tell you what their whole deal was.
Yeah, well, there's 2 Warlocks in the Marvel universe, which is
there's
super annoying.
Adam Warlock,
and just Warlock.
Yes.
Yeah, so he's an alien, but he's a techno-organic being.
Okay, great.
And his father is Magus, not to be confused with Adam Warlock's Magus. Very weird, guys.
Maybe they were trying to do a thing where it was like, oh, this is the space version of it, but this is the regular Earth version of it.
Those 4 characters have never intersected. It's
Nor
so
should
strange.
Nor should they. That would truly be too confusing.
Yeah. There's probably some literary reference to a Warlock and Magus in something that they're pulling from.
Probably. Yeah,
different
absolutely.
Things. But anyway, so Warlock's father, Magus, is an evil one of their beings. And so he fights the New Mutants, and basically magic takes him to limbo at a certain point to try to fight him there. And in the course of doing so, some of him gets left behind inside limbo and starts to infect the demon Sim, who was Magic's like right-hand man in limbo, but begrudgingly her right-hand man. Right. Yeah. And so once he gets infected with the techno-organic virus, he starts to scheme and starts to infect the rest of Limbo and try to take more and more power away from Magic. So that's kind of what leads to all of the Inferno storyline.
Okay.
Right. But a big part of the Inferno storyline is actually Madeline Pryor, who is Cyclops' wife, who just happens to look identical to Jean Grey.
Well, yeah, I mean, he has a type, Julian. What do you want from him? Yeah.
Who, once Cyclops realized that the real Jean Grey was alive, just up and left his wife and kid to go form X-Factor.
I feel like I remember that story from something, and I can't quite put my finger on what it is, but yeah, I feel like I've heard this before.
Yeah, I mean, I thought that that Brian Michael Bendis was the one to ruin my favorite X-Man, like when he turned him into an actual terrorist.
Yeah.
But no, Louise Simonson actually did a bulk of the damage to the character by doing this shit and also like writing him like a petulant child.
Right.
I fucking hate it. So like as a kid, saw these covers and I just thought it was like the most evil thing and like it terrified me.
Right.
And as an adult, I've known that Inferno is like a very big storyline. And so as I've been reading all this Chris Claremont stuff, I've been like, oh, we're getting to Inferno. Oh, here's Inferno prologue. And now we're at Inferno. Here it is. It's fucking Ghostbusters, Justin.
Oh, nice. That's good.
It is Saturday morning cartoon slapstick shit.
Oh.
It is all done for yucks.
Yeah.
You know, there's a part where like a mailbox comes to life and eats the postman and makes some joke about the postage being due.
Well, that's
like it's
fun.
That level of Looney Tunes shit.
That's fun. I mean, you know, that they're having, you know, sometimes the X-Men, they got to cut loose and, you know, that's
Yeah. So the issue here is a lot. So a lot of the story of Inferno is told in the pages of X-Factor, a little bit of New Mutants, Exterminators, which is an offshoot of X-Factor, and then Uncanny X-Men. But 3 of those 4 books are written by Louise Simonson, who is also writing Power Pack, which is the story about, it's a comic about I think the oldest member of Power Pack is 13, the youngest being like 4.
Yeah.
So she is right. So in a time when comic books are getting much more serious and darker, right? Partially because of like the fear mongering of the Reagan administration, right? Like getting people like thinking they're going to be mugged, like if they, you know, turn down the wrong alley, right?
Boy,
like that type of shit.
Some things never change, huh?
Yeah. It's weird how that happens.
Yeah.
But also, you know, so you know, at this point we've had The Dark Knight Returns. We've had The Killing Joke. We've had actually the same year that this is no, actually that's a year later. Never mind. We've had Frank Miller's run on Daredevil.
Okay.
Right? So like very tonally like a very decided tonal shift
right
in superhero comics during the 80s.
Right.
Then you got Louise Simonson over here writing Saturday morning cartoons.
Well, you know, something for everyone.
Right. But the tone of the X-Men has not been that.
I know.
And it's so
that
discordant.
Seems really jarring. Yeah.
And then the actual story of Inferno is just kind of indecipherable garbage because like there's actually like 2 demons from Limbo that are trying to take control and they're kind of fighting each other. But Madeline Pryor is involved as well, but she's not quite part of that plan. But also Mr. Sinister is there because Mr. Sinister is actually the person who cloned Madeline Pryor off of Jean Grey's DNA. But he as a villain does not actually come to the forefront until the very tail end of the Inferno story. But the X-Men don't know who he is. Even though he's also responsible for the Mutant Massacre, which was 2 years ago, as far as like publication dates go.
Yeah.
So all this stuff is like happening at the same time, but it's kind of disconnected from each other. And it's all bad.
Okay.
But at the same time, you know, Madeline Pryor's thing is like she kidnaps her son, Nathan Christopher Summers.
Okay.
And she's going to sacrifice him, you know, to the demons.
As one does.
And so everybody's trying to stop her. But me, knowing who Nathan Christopher Summers is, and knowing that there's a techno-organic virus that is running rampant in Limbo, the whole time I'm thinking, ooh, is this where it happens? Is this where it happens? Is Nathan going to get infected with a techno-organic virus here? What about here? It never happens.
Oh.
It's so weird. And I'm like, well, it's got to happen soon because I know Cable shows up in the next couple years.
Right. Huh.
And I felt for sure it would have been this story because it seemed like everything was lined up for that to happen.
Right.
Yeah, it's not good. And it's kind of frustrating also because so the volume of Inferno that I have is a very thick omnibus. I have finished the X-Men part of this omnibus, and now I'm just reading the tie-in issues from, there was like an Avengers story, there was a Fantastic Four story, like multiple issues. I'm now reading Spider-Man. So it's just that stuff. So I have reached the end of what is printed in omnibus form for X-Men up to this point. Like the next volume that I have is Jim Lee X-Men Volume 2, which begins with the 1991 X-Men #1.
All right.
Which is the first issue of X-Men I ever read. But that is a 3-year gap from where I'm at right now.
Yeah.
And so I just kind of have to wait for stuff to go back into print.
I think I had that comic actually at some point. Everybody had that comic, yeah.
I think it's still the best-selling single issue comic.
I wouldn't doubt it. That was that the one that had like the fold-out cover?
Mm-hmm.
Yep, I loved that one. That was great.
Yeah. But it's interesting too because now, so I'm in 1988. And like I've been saying the last couple times I've checked in, comics are changing, and I see it.
Right.
And now I'm starting to see the Image legends, like the ones who would ultimately found Image Comics are starting to show up. So like Mark Silvestri has been drawing Uncanny X-Men for a while at this point.
Okay.
The last issue of X Factor that's in this volume is the first Rob Liefeld issue that I've seen so far. Woof. Oh boy. Oh man. Like it was kind of fun when I saw my first Rob Liefeld gun because dude has never been able to draw a gun to save his life.
Oh man. So my friend at work, if he was here right now, I'm sure he would have an entire rant about Rob Liefeld and how much he dislikes them.
Everybody's got a rant about Rob Liefeld.
Yeah, that always seems to be the case with that guy.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
So he's shown up. The issue of Spider-Man that I got to in this omnibus is McFarlane's Spider-Man, which I remember that shit when it was happening.
Yeah.
And it's like reading it now, I'm like, I don't think that McFarlane's like panel-to-panel storytelling is all that good. But hot damn these Spider-Man poses though, because he is the one responsible for Spider-Man twisting into a pretzel when he web slings.
Right.
And he was also the one to make like the webs like super detailed and intricate. That's his thing.
Yep.
But yeah, and I'm like, oh, I'm so close to seeing my first Jim Lee issue. I can taste it.
Right.
And I'm going to be so excited when I see my first Jim Lee issue because Jim Lee is like one of my all-time favorite artists. When I read X-Men #1, I decided that I wanted to draw comics just because of that art.
Right.
And that was my dream for a lot of years.
Hell yeah.
But now I'm kind of going to play the waiting game. So, I actually do still have like half a volume of New Mutants to go back and read.
Okay.
But I'm doing that under duress. That book is terrible.
I'm sorry.
But they are reprinting. They are putting the X-Force Volume 1 Omnibus back into print at the end of the year.
Okay.
And I have that pre-ordered. That's all I want. I just need to see how it happens.
Right.
I just want to see how the New Mutants turn into X-Force. Because the New Mutants team at this point, the only member, there's like 7 members on this team.
Okay.
There's only 2 of them that make it to X-Force. The rest of them, like a lot of them, I don't even know. I never even heard of them before. And a lot of the rest of X-Force comes from the X Factor book. So that's very interesting. And so I'm kind of curious, like, how that team comes together and because the team is actually from like 3 other teams. Because Warpath, Warpath, he actually comes from the Hellions, which is the students that Emma Frost teaches at a different school. That are kind of like the villains to the New Mutants team. So,
okay,
that's kind of interesting that's where he shows up.
Right.
But yeah, that's kind of where I'm at now with my X-Men journey.
Well, that's fun.
Yeah. It was extremely disappointing to finally get to Inferno after all these years and just be like,
oh yeah,
it's literally just Ghostbusters. Like they saw Ghostbusters and they were like,
they probably
let's just
did.
do that. No, that's exactly what happened.
Because
I have learned that Chris Claremont was a big like cinephile and would just like adapt that shit. Like he saw Alien and then the Brood showed up in X-Men.
Right.
It's like that type of thing, right?
Uh-huh.
So like it 100%. Like you totally see it.
Right.
And it's like, okay, it's fine, I guess.
Yeah. Well, he had influences, Julian. What are you going to do?
Yeah, I mean, I don't mind that, but it is funny to like, because so much like influential pop culture happens during the course of his X-Men run.
Right.
And seeing that stuff influence the book is pretty interesting.
Right. I believe it.
Yeah. I am surprised. So one thing is that, around this time, Marvel had a lot of licensed comics that were coming out. They did like the Star Wars book. They did ROM. They did Transformers. Obviously, they did G.I. Joe. And it was a mandate that those books were part of the Marvel Universe. So there's an entire story arc in Uncanny X-Men that doesn't have the character ROM in it, but it does have his villains in it, like the aliens that he fights.
All right.
And it's a major storyline in Uncanny X-Men. And I'm honestly surprised that they never mentioned Transformers once, like as that was happening.
Yeah.
They've been I finally saw a reference in this volume, but it's kind of like after the fad had happened.
Right.
Like the comic, Marvel was still publishing the comic book, but at that point they had definitely made a split where these are not connected universes. But I was surprised that like the only real tie-in that ever happened was in issue 3 of the Transformers book, Spider-Man shows up.
Oh, okay.
But outside of that, like there wasn't, I mean, there might have been some mention of them here and there, but I don't know. I just would have, cause like they name dropped Godzilla by name because that was also a Marvel comic book in the early 80s. So I don't know, just kind of an interesting bit of apocryphal lore where it's like, yeah, there's a villain in Uncanny X-Men that's from ROM.
Right. Why not?
Yeah. But that's all, I think that's all I got.
Yeah, that might be it.
I think that's a show, Justin.
I think that's a show, Julian.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think we should just go ahead and start wrapping this up.
Yep.
I don't know. Yeah. You can find us online. Yeah, that's a thing.
That's it. That's a thing.
Justin, where can they find you online?
You can find me at Tyrone_Swift on Twitter, X, whatever the hell it is. I'm not very much on there, but I will reply to things. You can find me on twitch.tv Tyrone Swift. I always forget how the link goes. I usually stream on Saturdays around 9 or 10, something like that. I'm gonna start a long-term playthrough at some point, but I think by the time you're listening to this, it'll have already happened probably. But I'm probably gonna just do a Steam Next Fest stream pretty soon here because that's going on, and I might as well play some dumb demos. And also
G Card Simulator.
That they don't have a demo, Julian. So
it's just a request.
We'll get there eventually.
Okay.
Get there eventually. How about we play the demo of Fast Food Simulator?
Sounds all right.
All right. There we go. We'll compromise. Okay.
Is it one of the ones where they have like a really shitty AI art for the?
It doesn't look good. It doesn't look good, but I can't wait.
Yeah.
I don't have it downloaded yet, but it's definitely in my library right now. But also, and if you missed those, you can go to YouTube and find me at Tyrone Swift TV on there, and you can watch the old stuff.
Yeah.
For some people, or for some reason, a bunch of people watched the ending of the Star Trek Resurgence one more than they watched the other ones, which was kind of confusing to me. But I salute you.
Yeah. Usually it's the other way around, right?
Yeah.
Like
usually it's like the first. And then peters out. No, for some reason, more people watched the ending part of it. I was like, all right, well, fine, that's cool.
Maybe a lot of people's games locked up and they just wanted to see how it finishes.
Yeah, that could be. Who knows?
You can find me on Twitter at Julian_Titus. The show is on Twitter at Stage Select Pod. We do have a segment on the show called Questions, Comments, and Concerns. So if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, there's a multitude of ways that you can contact us. You can email us. The email address is thestageselectpod@gmail.com. You can DM us on Twitter, once again, at stageselectpod. If you're a patron, you can comment on the show post for Patreon. I've been remiss. There actually have been some people that have commented on there, and I have been remiss in adding those.
We should probably add those, Julian.
We should probably add those, Justin.
You should probably add those.
Yeah.
There's also the Discord.
There is the Discord. That's probably the easiest way to get at us.
That's probably the easiest way.
Yeah, the link for that is in our link tree in the show notes.
It's a very nice Discord.
It's a very nice Discord.
Very pleasant.
Don't be shy. Say hi.
Yeah.
And then also, if you're on YouTube, you can comment on the episodes there. We'll get them that way. Oh, real quick, I forgot to mention this when we were thanking patrons, but if you're listening to this as it goes up, you have until 7:30 Central Time on October 25th to vote for the next Suffer Select if you are a patron. Now, Castlevania 2, Simon's Quest is kind of running away with it.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So, yeah.
Well, I mean, you didn't forget, by the way, Morgan kind of took over for you, so you're in the clear.
True. Yeah, he didn't know how we
He didn't
do
know.
things.
Yeah,
it's fine. And he's dead now, so we can't.
He'll come back to life after a little while.
Yeah, we know how he does.
Yeah.
Special thanks to the wonderful Megan McDuffie for being on the show and also providing our incredible theme song and interstitial tracks. Thanks to John Gholson for being our announcer and for the show artwork. But that is going to do it for this edition of the Stage Select. I've been Julian Titus. He's been Justin Ham. Special thanks to special guest Megan McDuffie. We've been the Stage Select. Signing off.
Uh-huh.
The Stage Select is copyrighted and owned by Space Monkey Mafia Productions, specializing in independent podcasting. Please consider sharing the show with your friends and support us by joining our Patreon or donating to our coffee. Thank you, and good night.